Well, hello, lovely people. It's HR. We're back to do some more streaming. I'm giving into the hot mess that is today and life in general. Um, yeah, I'm feeling some 1920s today. I don't know why, but we're gonna delve into the 1920s today. I'm gonna do some retro 1920s art, and we're gonna listen to relationship advice from the 1920s. But I'm gonna let one more. Hey, progress. Um, I'm gonna let one more Gardic happen. And then we'll get into arting and stuff because it's on autopilot and it's about to start anyway. But yeah, I hope everyone's doing well today. Of course, it doesn't want to give us anything easy. Well, thank you for stopping by. Have fun with Ben. I'm just gonna try and get through this on my own. I can do it. Woohoo! I beat first round. All right. I got the first one down all by myself. Let's see if I can keep beating it. Oh, well, I tried. I tried. It is what it is. All right. Let me shut off autopilot on this. Autopilot is off. So we've got an interesting book today, and then later when we have a few more people in here, we will vote on the next book. But I don't want to just jump into another H.G. Wells. So today we have an interesting treat from the 1920s. I'm feeling the 1920s right now. As a reminder, closed captions pull from another dimension. Highly recommend turning those on. But let's go to the library. We recently finished H.G. Wells. Today, I think we can get through this in one night. Excuse me. We are listening to A Guide to Men by Helen Rowland. And it's a series of occasionally witty one-liners, poems, and considerations on the subjects of men, women, and their conjunction. By turns tender, bland, sexist in both directions, and funny. It's read by Corey Samuel. I usually include that in the link, but I forgot to this time. Some excerpts from the text. A man is like a park squirrel. If you fling your favors or your charms at his head, he will never come up and eat out of your hand. Even Satan could find a woman to call him dearie if he would simply tell her that all he needed was a beautiful woman's uplifting influence. Every bride fancies that she married the original caveman until she tries to persuade him to go out and argue with the furniture movers. Mayhap. I was just looking for something for filler, and I was actually looking for something that was like a guide to being a good housewife or something that we could like laugh at and pick apart. Because like I said, I just didn't want to jump right into another H.G. Wells. Even though the War of the Worlds was really good. Um, I just didn't want to do War of the Worlds and then the Time Machine like back to back like that. So yeah, Andrew Tate probably still wouldn't like it, and that's okay. I'm okay with things that Andrew Tate does not like. So, I'm going to draw some 1920s stuff, and we are going to listen to this interesting sounding audiobook that I found from 1922. So, we'll see how it goes. If we need to change it, we can. But yeah, it seems interesting. The final chapter is Maxims of Cleopatra finale. So it's just interesting, and I need to get in some practice, like drawing, like just regular drawing. Not gonna worry about coloring so much today. I'm just gonna be sketching a bit. Every so often, I do one of these streams where I'm like, um, not really working on something. I'm doing something more like. I don't know why I'm like thinking you can see what I'm showing on the iPad right now. Let's go over to here. Let's get rid of the prompts. But yeah, so every so often on stream, I just do some practice, and that's kind of what I'm going to do today. I'm just going to kind of try and get some practice in on portraiture with some ladies from the 1920s. That's the plan. Anyway, oh, before I go into this, just want to show y'all from our prompt last time. Y'all wanted an uwu anthropomorphic bug at the beach with a face hugger somewhere in there, and they had to be in a stoic mood. I think we've accomplished the uwu. I've got like the sunshine spotting down in there. I probably should have thrown in a shadow for the bug, but it's all good. It's all good. This was a fun, weird little side project. I like it. I've got my signature smiling birds over there because if I ever draw birds in something, it's usually like in a little smiley face configuration. Also kind of ooh woo in the birds with their like going up and then W-ish shape of the mouth. So there is that. Yeah, so I added a little bit more shadowing and whatnot to make the eyes pop out a little more. Yeah, she's just walking her face hugger on the beach over here, all calm and chill. So it's fun. It came out better than some of the other ones that we've done on prompt night have come out. I'm gonna try and do one of those once per month. But anyway, I'm gonna switch over the audio. We're gonna get into the intro of the book.
Section 1 of A Guide to Men. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. A Guide to Men, being Encore Reflections of a Bachelor Girl, by Helen Rowland, recording by Corey Samuel. The material for this book was collected directly from nature at great personal risk by the author. Forward. A small file, I doubt not, could contain the attar of the epigrammatic literature of all time. Few of the perfumes of this diminutive form of wit and satire have survived. Pretty and scented vapourings, most of the thousands and thousands of them that have died on the air of the foibles of their day. Yet how the pungent ones can persist. The racy old odours, which are as new as now, that still hover about the political and amorous quips of the Greeks, the nose-crinkling ones of the French, more vinegar-acrid than perfumed, although a 17th-century proverb calls France a monarchy tempered by epigrams. The didactic Teutonic ones, sharply corrosive. The greatest evaporative, of course, of this form of bon mot is mere cleverness. Wit is the attar which endures. The wit of Pope and Catullus, Landor, Voltaire, Rousseau and Wilde. That is what Rapin must have had in mind when he said that a man ought to be content if he succeeded in writing one really good epigram. Helen Rowland stands pleasantly impeached for writing many. She has a whiz to her swiftly cynical arrow that entitles her to a place in the tournament. She is not merely anagrammatical, scorns the couplet for the mere sake of the couplet, and has little time for the smiting word at any price. In the entire history of epigrammatic expression there are few, if any, whose fame rests solely on the brittle structure of the bon mot. Martial, about whose brilliant brevities can scarcely be said to hover the odour of sanctity, is, I suppose, remembered solely as a wielder of the barbed word. Miss Rowland is balanced skilfully upon that same slender trapeze, doing a very deft bow and arrow act, her archery of a high order. She wields a wicked bow, a kindly bow, a swift, a sure, a ductile bow. Matrimony is her favourite target. So was it Bombo's and Herrick's, and even political Parnell had his shot at it. And her little winged arrows are often bitingly pointed with philosophy, satire, wit, and sometimes just a touch of good old homebrew American hokum. For this wise woman with the high-spirited bow behind her arrow, these little pages speak eloquently. Fanny Hurst. Overture. Would you your sweetheart's secret seek to spell, there are so many little ways to tell. A hair, perhaps, shall prove him false or true, a single hair upon his coat lapel. Prelude. The sweetest part of a kiss is the moment just before taking. Love is misery, sweetened with imagination, salted with tears, spiced with doubt, flavoured with novelty, and swallowed with your eyes shut. Marriage is the miracle that transforms a kiss from a pleasure into a duty, and a lie from a luxury into a necessity. A husband is what is left of a lover after the nerve has been extracted. A man's heart is like a barber shop in which the cry is always, "Next!" The discovery of rice powder on his coat lapel makes a college boy swagger, a bachelor blush, and a married man tremble. It takes one woman 20 years to make a man of her son, and another woman 20 minutes to make a fool of him. By the time a man has discovered that he is in love with a woman, she is usually so fagged out waiting for the phenomenon that she is ready to topple right over into his arms from sheer exhaustion. A man always asks for just one kiss, because he knows that if he can get that, the rest will come without asking.
Hey, Hellbound, we're listening to relationship advice from the 1920s. I just wanted to have something in between. I didn't want to start the time machine tonight. We'll probably start it on Monday. But I just didn't want to do H.G. Wells and then H.G. Wells. And I was looking for a guide to be a good wife, and I found this instead, which is a guide to men. It's supposed to be satirical a little bit and funny and have some poems and whatever. I don't know. I just thought it interesting. So we're going to give it a listen.
Somehow, the moment a man has surrendered the key of his heart to a woman, he begins to think about changing the lock. There are only 2 ages at which a man faces the altar without a shudder. At 20, when he doesn't know what's happening to him, and at 80, when he doesn't care. The refrain. There's so much saint in the worst of them, and so much devil in the best of them, that a woman who's married to one of them has nothing to learn of the rest of them. End of section 1.
So next up, we have about a 10-minute chapter about bachelors. Should be interesting. Also, meaning to say, hold on one second. If you don't know, that's not right. I go over here. If you don't know, I've started making YouTube videos. If you want to save that for later or head over, give it a listen, give it a like at some point. I've been making some YouTube videos lately if you want to check them out. But anyway, this next chapter is on bachelors. So let's see what this lady from the 1920s, 1922, I looked it up, is when this was written. So let's see what this lady from 1922 has to say about bachelors. I'm not endorsing any of this. I just thought it would be amusing to listen to.
Section 2 of A Guide to Men by Helen Rowland. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Bachelors. Somehow, just at the psychological moment when a bachelor fancies that he is going to die for love of a woman, another woman always comes along and interrupts him. The modern bachelor is like a blotting pad. He can soak up all the sentiment and flattery a woman has to offer him without ever spilling a drop. A confirmed bachelor is so sure of his ability to dodge that he is willing to amuse every pretty girl he meets by handing her a rope and daring her to catch him. A bachelor is a large body of egotism, completely surrounded by caution and fortified at all points by suspicion. His chief products are wild oats and cynicism, his chief industry is dodging matrimony, his undeviating policy, protection, and his watchword, give me liberty or give me death. The average bachelor is so afraid of falling into matrimony nowadays that he sprinkles the path of love with ashes instead of with roses. The care with which a bachelor chaperones himself would inspire even the duenna of a fashionable boarding school with envy. A bachelor's idea of "safety first" consists in getting tangled up with a lot of women in order to avoid getting tied up to one. He is an altruist who refrains from devoting himself to one woman in order that he may scatter sweetness and light amongst the multitude. There is nothing quite so intriguing to a bachelor as flirting with the idea of marriage, with his fingers crossed. He just loves to consider marrying in the abstract, and to go about pitying himself for being so lonely. There are three kinds of bachelors: the kind that must be driven into matrimony with a whip, the kind that must be coaxed with sugar, and the kind that must be blindfolded and backed into the shafts. If you want to be chosen,
I think I'm gonna have to rewind that and listen to that again. So you either need to be beaten, or you catch more flies with honey, or you need to be blindfolded and tricked into it. What's gonna be sad is like hearing that some of these stereotypes still persist like 100 years later. Because, like I said, this was written in 1922. So yeah, I'm gonna go back just a little bit.
duenna of a fashionable boarding school with envy. A bachelor's idea of "safety first" consists in getting tangled up with a lot of women in order to avoid getting tied up to one. He is an altruist who refrains from devoting himself to one woman in order that he may scatter sweetness and light amongst the multitude. There is nothing quite so intriguing to a bachelor as flirting with the idea of marriage, with his fingers crossed. He just loves to consider marrying in the abstract, and to go about pitying himself for being so lonely. There are three kinds of bachelors: the kind that must be driven into matrimony with a whip, the kind that must be coaxed with sugar, and the kind that must be blindfolded and backed into the shafts. If you want to be chosen to brighten a bachelor's life, first make it dark and dreary. So long as women are willing to make his existence one long sweet song, naturally he isn't anxious to exchange it for a lullaby. When a man actually asks a girl to marry him in these days of bachelor comforts and the deification of single blessedness, she has a revelation of human unselfishness that stands as the eighth wonder of the world. That tired expression on a bachelor's face is not so often the result of brain fag from an overworked mind as of heart fag from overworking the emotions. Lovers look at life through rose-tinted curtains. Old bachelors see it through a fog. Somehow, a bachelor never quite gets over the idea that he is a thing of beauty and a boy forever. A bachelor fancies that it is his wonderful 60-horse willpower that keeps him from marrying, whereas it is nothing but his little 1-horse won't power. One consolation in marrying a bachelor over 40 is that he has fought so long and so hard to escape the hook that there is no more fight left in him. Never give up hope as long as a bachelor declares definitely, "No woman can get me." Wait until he is so sure of his immunity that he sighs regretfully, "No woman will have me." The "vicious circle," in a bachelor's opinion, is the platinum one on a woman's third finger. A bachelor of arts is one who makes love to a lot of women and yet has the art to remain a bachelor. First interlude.
Okay. Um Yeah, she said that. That's what she said. I don't know if I keep pausing it to laugh as hard as I keep laughing, we might not get through it today. Um, yeah, I didn't know that that's what a Bachelor of Art was, but apparently that's what a Bachelor of Art is. Okay, okay. I can breathe. It's all good. All right. I'm happy with myself for choosing this. Like, I'm happy with this selection so far. This is a good break from like more serious literature. Okay. Let's go. Maybe finish this before you move on. It's good enough to make you snort. Yes, every so often, if I'm in a laughing fit, I do snort. Um, I don't even think I have any alcohol, but maybe I should go see if I have any alcohol to make this even like more ridiculous. Anyway, okay, we're gonna get back to it. I'm gonna get back to trying to draw 1920s people. Just like the concept might not necessarily be humorous, but the way that it was said, and me being an artist, that one just caught me off guard. Let's keep going.
In the spring, a young man's fancy lightly turns, and turns, and turns. There are lots of sure cures for love, but the quickest and surest is another love. If there were only 2 women and 1 man in the world, the man would marry the brunette, and then spend the rest of his life peeping over her shoulder and trying to flirt with the blonde. A woman always embalms the corpse of a dead love. A man
Redheads are better. That's all I'm gonna say.
wisely cremates it and plants a new love in the ashes. A fool and her money are soon courted. A woman's pity for a man who loves her against her will may be akin to love, but a man's pity for a woman who loves him without his permission is a twin brother to boredom. Marriage is the miracle which
See, that was really funny, but then like that last one kind of hit me because it's like women may feel pity or feel like some sort of something um for someone who loves them and are not loved in return, and then men, the way men feel for a woman they haven't given permission to love them. That's just the language choice in that sentence was that one still hits nowadays a little bit.
affords a woman a chance to gratify her vanity, pacify her family, mortify her rivals, and electrify her friends, all at the same time, marriage is sweet. Love is what incites the caveman to drag a woman around by the hair, and makes the civilized man permit a woman to drag him around by the nose. The heart of a woman is a secret sanctuary, where she is constantly burning incense and candles before a succession of idols of clay. Nowadays, a man's faith in women and heaven seems to disappear with his milk teeth, and to reappear again with his false teeth. To most men, repentance is merely the interval between the headache and the next temptation. Most bachelors regard the flower of love as a species of poison ivy. Even Satan could find a woman to call him dearie, if he would simply tell her that all he needed was a beautiful woman's uplifting influence. A man may be guilty of stealing a girl's heart, but he always feels hurt and indignant if she refuses to take it back again after he has finished with it. Woman's love, a mirror in which a man beholds himself glorified, magnified, and deified. Always try to be the guiding star of a man's life, but never make the mistake of fancying that you are his whole planetary system. A woman must keep her conscience, her complexion, and her reputation snow white, but a man is satisfied if he can just manage to keep his so that they comply with the pure food laws. Art is inspiring, but you can't run your fingers through its hair. A career is absorbing, but you can't tie ribbons on the curls of your brain children. Work is ennobling, but alas, it hasn't got a shoulder to cry on. When a girl refuses to kiss a man, he is never disconcerted. He is merely astonished that she could be so blind to her own feelings. A summer resort is a place where a girl spends half her time in making herself alluring, and the other half in yearning for something to lure. When a girl marries a man, she is sadly aware that all his old sweethearts are wondering how she did it, and that all her old sweethearts are wondering why. Marriage will never be safe until we stop making it an ideal and begin trying to make it a square deal. Just before marriage, a man's coat lapel acquires that greyish look which comes from the constant contact with face powder, but it's wonderful how soon it brightens up and gets back to its natural colour after the wedding. Love is like appendicitis. You never know when or how it is going to strike you, the only difference being that, after one attack of appendicitis, your curiosity is perfectly satisfied.
Remember that. Love is like appendicitis. I mean, some people never find love. Some people aren't interested in it. I don't know.
No matter how many men have tried to flirt with her, a girl will step cheerfully up to the altar in the firm belief that she has found the one perfect human being in trousers who will never look at another woman. After marriage, a woman's sight becomes so keen that she can see right through her husband without looking at him, and a man's so dull that he can look right through his wife without seeing her. A man recuperates so much more quickly from his remorse than a woman does from her indignation, that by the time she has forgiven him, he is tired of being good and ready to sin again. Before marriage, a man will go home and lie awake all night thinking about something you said. After marriage, he'll go to sleep before you finish saying it. A man can never understand how a woman gets so much joy out of leading him all the way to the threshold of love, and then sweetly closing the door in his face. Solitaire, the married woman's game. A man's greatest conquest is self-conquest, his greatest possession self-possession.
Listen, there there are there are I don't know, we could make some figurative language leaps and make this work somehow. It is hilarious though that some of these same tropes and some of the same things she's saying are still around 100 years later.
And his greatest love? Or will you fill in the rest? Why does a man take it for granted that a girl who flirts with him wants him to kiss her, when 9 times out of 10 she only wants him to want to kiss her? Plunging into a hasty marriage in order to escape from a foolish entanglement is like rushing under a trolley car in order to escape from a taxicab. Nowadays, a girl's favourite way of committing suicide for love of a man is to marry him and worry herself to death over him. A good wife is always her husband's guide, philosopher and friend, also his guardian, digestion, conscience, timetable and valet. A man never knows how to say goodbye, a woman never knows when to say it. A woman's greatest right is the right husband. A woman might forgive a man for all his sins. It's that stained glass attitude with which he decides to give them up when he is tired of them that exasperates her so. A man doesn't want a wife who places him on a pedestal or keeps him on a footstool, but one who will take him as a mere man and let him go on being mere. End of section 2.
All right, so far this is a mix of hilarious with a few, very few truths sprinkled in, and then just like a whole lot of stereotypes. Like, some of which you still hear today, 100 years later. But it is very much amusing me. There is a lot of wit in it. Yeah, here and there's a little bit of tragedy sprinkled in there, but it's also like it's resonating because I feel like today a lot of us use tragic humor to kind of deal with the craziness that is the world. So, yeah, I get it. I get the tragic humor. But it is amusing me. There is a lot of wit. This lady had a lot of wit and a lot of one-liners, like one after another, that are pretty funny or insightful or just witty. I'm enjoying it. Like, I'm enjoying it. I'm not gonna lie. It's amusing me. All right, so that one was about bachelors. This next one is about true love and how to know it. Then after that, there's a whole chapter on blondes. And the like sub thing in parentheses is cymbals and kettle drums. So it's blondes. And then in, in parentheses, cymbals and kettle drums. So we better listen to True Love and How to Know It first. So let's find out how this gal in 1922 tells us to find true love.
Section 3 of A Guide to Men by Helen Rowland. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. True Love, How to Know It. True love is nothing but friendship, highly intensified, flavoured with sentiment, spiced with passion, and sprinkled with the stardust of romance. True love can be no deeper than your capacity for friendship, no higher than your ideals, and no broader than the scope of your vision. True love in the caveman is expressed by a desire to beat a woman and to pull her around by the hair. True love in the Broadwayite is expressed by an insatiable craving to buy things for a woman. True love in a husband is expressed by his willingness to give his wife anything, from the tenderest piece of steak to a divorce if it will make her happy. True love in any man is the essence of unselfishness, and the most selfish thing in the world. It is the selfishness that transcends selfishness, the vanity that puts egotism in the shade. True love in a bachelor is exemplified by his willingness to marry a woman against all his instincts, his sense of self-preservation, and his better judgment. True love in a born flirt is evidenced by his inability to think of any other woman while he is kissing a particular one. True love in an author is demonstrated by his self-restraint in refusing to make copy out of a love affair. True love in a college boy is expressed by his ability to think of somebody besides himself for a whole hour at a time. It is the flash of light by which one sees clearly that to do for another, give to another, and sacrifice for another will get one the most happiness out of life. True love in the poet is expressed in soul kisses and by his ability to do any work for days at a time. We speak of falling in love as though it were a pit or an abyss, but true love is the light on the mountain top to which we must eternally climb. True love is a relic of the Victorian age. It still exists here and there, like the buffalo, but in the face of eugenics, feminism, and the growing masculine determination not to marry, it may someday have to take a place beside the dinosaurs in the public museum. Variations. Flirtation is a duel in which the combatants cross lies, sighs, and eyes, and the coolest heart wins. Falling in love consists merely in uncorking the imagination and bottling the common sense. In the medley of love a man's soul sings a sonata, while his heart plays a waltz and his pulse beats to ragtime. Better be a strong man's rib than a weak man's backbone. True love isn't the kind that endures through long years of absence, but the kind that endures through long years of propinquity. A man seldom thinks of marrying when he meets his ideal woman. He waits until he gets the marrying fever and then idealizes the first woman he happens to meet. Love is what tempts a man to tell foolish lies to a woman, and a woman to tell the full truth to a man. It took 700 guesses for Solomon to find out what kind of a wife he wanted, and even then he seems to have had his doubts. The only thing more astonishing than the length of time a man's love will subsist on nothing is the celerity with which it is surfeited the moment it has any encouragement to feed on. Even when a man knows that he wants to marry a woman, she has to prove it to him with a diagram before he is really convinced of it. A man is so apt to mistake his love of experiment for love of a woman that half the time he doesn't know which is which. Why is it that a man never thinks he has tasted the cup of joy unless he has splashed it all over himself as though it were his morning bath? A man is so versatile that he can read his newspaper with one set of brain cells while he carries on a conversation with his wife with another set. A girl hides her emotions under a veil of modesty, a spinster under a cloak of cynicism, a wife under a mantle of tact, and a widow under a cloud of mystery, and then women wonder why they are misunderstood. Proposing is a sort of acrobatic feat, in which a man must hang on to his nerve with one hand and to the girl with the other. If he lets go of either, he is lost. In love, as in poker, men play just to play, and then proceed to throw away what has been easily won without any thought of its value. Thus gamblers so often die in poverty, and Lotharios in loneliness. Nowadays, a truly chivalrous girl will lie like a lady in order to protect a trusting man's vanity. The woman who fascinates a man is not the one who looks up to him as the sun of her existence, but the one who merely looks down on him as one of the footlights. Don't doubt a man when he says, "I never loved like this before." Each time a man falls in love with so much more ease and facility that he doesn't recognize it as the same old emotion at all. The first time a man lies to his wife, he is surprised to discover how easy it is to do it. After that, he is surprised to find out how hard it is not to do it. A man always speaks of having given his heart to a woman as though he had done something generous and noble, whereas 9 times out of 10 she probably had to wrench it from him. About the only things in connection with his wife for which a man shows any respect after a few years of marriage are her reputation and her toothbrush. End of section 3.
Methinks this author maybe doesn't like guys so much. I don't know. But on to blondes, parentheses, cymbals, and what was it? Cymbals and kettle drums.
Section 4 of A Guide to Men by Helen Rowland. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Blondes. Next to a mouse or a rich widow, there is nothing on earth that a normal girl dreads so much as a blonde. No matter how many brunettes a man may have married from
Nope, because redheads are better. Just saying.
time to time, you can always be perfectly sure that there has been a blonde in his life. A woman with dark hair and eyes may make men admire her, but in order to make one of them propose, she must blondine her temperament down to the roots. The dusky Cleopatra may have succeeded in making fools of a few men, but it took a dizzy little blonde like Helen of Troy to make a lot of men make fools of themselves. In order to be popular with men in these days, a brunette must either be brilliant, interesting, rich, or beautiful, but a blonde doesn't have to be anything but a blonde. You may fight a brunette, dearie, as woman to woman, but
Even 100 years ago, this was still a thing?
when you fight a blonde, you fight a cherished masculine tradition. Why is it that in all the novels and motion picture plays the vampires and adventuresses have dark hair and black eyes, while the innocent persecuted angels are all blondes, whereas in real life it is always the other way round? Generally speaking, there are two kinds of blondes: blondes by birth and blondes by preference. These are subdivided into golden blondes, diamond blondes, strawberry blondes, and undecided blondes, that is, those who have not yet decided on their favourite shade. Sometimes illness turns a woman's hair grey, and sometimes it merely turns it dark at the roots. A little peroxide is a treacherous thing. All this talk about the yellow peril is nonsense. There is no more danger in permitting your husband to employ a pretty blonde stenographer than there is in throwing a lighted match into the wastebasket. When love flies out of the window, the tame cat and the sympathetic blonde tiptoe in by opposite doors. Cymbals and kettle drums. This is the great masculine question, whether it is better to marry and live in the constant fear.
It's been interesting progress. It's been interesting. There's been some parts that just caught me off guard and made me laugh till like I snorted. But then there's some parts that are just like, yeah. So even back in the day, there was stuff about blondes. I don't know. I don't know. It's been interesting. Some parts, yes. There are definitely some parts where it's like, yeah, we don't tell those jokes anymore. But there are some parts where we do still tell the same jokes, or at least certain types of comedians do still tell the same jokes, and there are the same tropes around. And it's just interesting. Like, I don't know. I'm still finding it interesting. Because I was actually looking to see if there was anything like a guide to like be a good housewife or something like from the 20s, just to see what kind of horribleness was in that. Um, but this is from a bachelorette's perspective, and so I was like, this could be interesting, and it has been. Some of it's been quite humorous. Some of the phrasing has been like I said before, this is a very witty person. Um, this author is quite witty. But yeah, there are some jokes that we don't tell anymore. There is some outdated stuff, and then there's some stuff that's like, yeah, this is still a trope today. Like this is still stuff we talk about today. So I don't know. I'm finding it interesting. I'm gonna keep going.
Fear of one woman's frown, or to stay single and live in deadly fear of every woman's smile. Conscience doth make cowards of us all, but not until we've emptied the bottle, tired of the flirtation, and gotten our money's worth out of the game. Marriage, a souvenir of love. Wanted, a wife who can broil a steak with one hand, powder her nose with the other, rock the cradle with her foot, and accompany herself on the harp. Signed, Everyman. When the girls admire him, a young man takes it as a matter of course, but when a widow selects him for her attention, he thrills with the knowledge that he is being stamped with the approval of a connoisseur. Before marriage, a man declares that he would lay down his life to serve you. After marriage, he won't even lay down his newspaper to talk to you. If Achilles' only vulnerable spot was in his heel, then his vanity must have gone to his feet instead of to his head. You can't expect a woman to accomplish much in this life, since she is busy every minute of it either trying to get some man, trying to get along with one, or trying to get rid of one. A man's wife is something like his teeth. He never thinks of her unless she happens to bother him. Life is a tale that is told. The monk tells his beads, the seer tells fortunes, the lover tells lies, and a woman tells everything. To collect books is a sign of culture, to collect jewels a sign of wealth, but to collect husbands is a sign of paresis. A modern bachelor makes love with his hand on his pulse and his eye on the clock. Oh yes, there is a vast difference between the savage and the civilized man, but it is never apparent to their wives until after breakfast. A sympathetic woman is like a rose which a man wears over his heart. A stupid woman is like a cabbage which he keeps in his kitchen, but a merely clever woman is like a dahlia. He knows he ought to admire her, but he had just as lief do so from a distance. While a woman is weeping over the ghost of a dead love in the graveyard of memory, a man is usually off pursuing a lot of little new loves in the garden of forgetfulness. Life is like a poem or a story. The most important thing about it is not that it should be long, but that it should be beautiful and interesting. The older a woman gets, the more trusting she becomes. At 20 a man can feed her only diluted flattery, but at 40 she can swallow it straight without a quiver. No girl who is going to marry need bother to win a college degree. She just naturally becomes a Master of Arts and a Doctor of Philosophy.
Hey, Zero. Hold on. I'm just sketching some 1920s vibes. I haven't done as much portraiture as I should in a while. And we finished War of the Worlds. We're going to be moving on to the Time Machine next week. So I'm just sketching some 1920s vibes here. Um, Not really anyone in particular. I just haven't done a lot of like face sketching in a while. So that is what I'm working on. Hold on one moment. So I want to say this one is Madge Bellamy. I think I'm looking at I think it's Madge Bellamy. Let me double check. I'm just into some stuff that's in the public domain. Yeah, it's Madge Bellamy. She was talking about alcohol. That was clearly an allusion to alcohol. not to where your mind went. Oh my goodness. But yeah, it's Madge Bellamy that I am sketching right now. Because again, we're in the 1920s. We're getting relationship advice from 1922. Hi, Zero. Thank you for stopping by today. We're having some fun. Perhaps. I can't necessarily argue with that help. Um, but yeah, hopefully Madge Bellamy is somewhat recognizable if anyone like knows her. But yeah, 1920s actress. That's who I'm sketching. All right. Let's continue listening to blondes, cymbals, and kettle drums. See what else Hellbound can take out of context.
After catering to an ordinary man for a few years. The average man takes all the natural taste out of his food by covering it with ready-made sauces, and all the personality out of a woman by covering her with his ready-made ideals. Heaven is not a mythical place. It can be found right down in the heart of the man who has found the work he loves and the woman he loves. An ideal lover is one with such a keen dramatic instinct that he can convince himself of his sincerity even when he knows that he is lying. Love is a matter of chance, matrimony a matter of money, and divorce a matter of course. Adam was the first man to misunderstand a woman. A man is like a park squirrel. If you fling your favours or your charms at his head, he will never come up and eat out of your hand. What a man calls his conscience is merely the mental action that follows a sentimental reaction.
Are you gents like park squirrels? If I fling my favors or my charms at your head, you'll never come up and eat out of my hand? Oh my. Okay.
After too much wine or love. In the school of love, a man is forever just taking up a brand new study and discovering that all the old loves were nothing but preparatory practice. The eugenic idea of choosing a husband would be perfectly lovely, only that a husband isn't a matter of choice, but of chance, accident, or blind luck. Love is woman's eternal spring, man's eternal fall. It isn't beauty, and it isn't cleverness, and it isn't clothes that make a particular woman fascinating. It is just the sort of magnetic current which seems to run around her and set her eyes a-twinkling and a man's heart tingling. It is utterly useless to tell a man the honest truth. That is the last thing on earth which a man ever tells a woman, so of course it's the last thing on earth which he ever expects to hear from her. The average man, like all Gaul, is divided into three parts: his vanity, his digestion, and his ambition. Cater to the first, guard the second, and stimulate the third, and his love will take care of itself. There is no such tonic for a man's nerve as a capricious wife, and no such softener for his backbone as a self-sacrificing one. A man can sit in the moonlight and talk "new thought" to a pretty girl, and at the same time look right into her eyes with all the old ones. Bohemia is an oasis in the desert of life, where only the rich in dreams may go, and only the poor in purse may stay. There is no way of two people really knowing each other until after they are married and have to share the same dollar, the same table, the same newspaper, and the same chiffonier. End of section 4.
I don't know what that sounded like. It sounded like something, that's for sure. Oh my goodness. Oh my. All right, I've been on for about an hour. That explains why I feel like I need to go use the restroom. When I come back, we'll continue on. Apparently, I'm gonna find out what I wonder because this next chapter is called What Every Woman Wonders, the second interlude. So I'm not sure what exactly it is that I always wonder, but apparently I'm about to find out. I'll probably do a little bit more work here on Madge. He's not coming out the greatest, but I guess as a warm up, it's fine. And then we will move on. And I'll try to sketch some more 1920s actresses. That's the plan, at least. All right, I'm going to bring up Gartic. I'm turning the automatic pilot back on. Play if you want to play, don't if you don't. I'll probably be back in probably less than 10 minutes, but the timer is going to say 10 minutes, but I'll probably only be gone for 6 to 8 minutes. I'm going to refill my drink. Well, I'm going to use the restroom, refill my drink, and then I'll be back. So if you're still here when I get back, awesome. Love to see it. If you're not, thank you so much for the time you were here. Play if you want to play, don't if you don't. I might join you in the comments while I'm waiting for my drink. I'll be back officially in a few. All right, we've made it to level 2. Let's see if we can make it further. Our record is level 10. Also, obviously, I am back. But we're going to continue the game before we continue the 1922 relationship advice. Ooh, that's a good one. Ah, that one's needing to be flushed. Oh, nope, we didn't make it. All right, let me shut autopilot off. Options, autopilot off. All right, so we're going to continue on with our 1920s relationship advice. This is the book. It's The Guide to Men by Helen Rowland. If you want to follow along or look it up, this is the book. Also, this is the question of the day today. And I'm finishing up a sketch of Madge Bellamy, a 1920s actress. I'm going to move on shortly. This one isn't going as well as I may have hoped, but whatever. I'm having fun. I'm practicing. Let's see. What is next? So we were just on a chapter about blondes. This lady did not like blondes. Um, but now I'm about to find out what I wonder. Oh yeah, super smell would not be good. X-ray vision also would not be good. Like the main thing with X-ray vision is if you closed your eyes, like if you could see through everything, light would come through your eyelids. You would never be able to have like true darkness. I would think that would disturb sleep and become problematic. I remember this old movie about a scientist who was trying to get radioactive vision and or trying to get not radioactive vision, but like the power to see through anything, and he kept doing these eye drops, and like it was a weird movie. He couldn't, like, it got worse and worse, and it was this weird old movie that I can't think of the name of right now, but the guy in the movie didn't. The guy in the movie like did not get used to it. He just got worse and worse and worse. But anyway, Let's see what every woman wonders. Let's see if this is still true 100 years later, and if I indeed wonder it. You're hearing an echo. There shouldn't be an echo. Let me see here. No, I've got my volume off, so there shouldn't be an echo. I am kind of like in an enclave area that might be creating a small echo. Um, and I do have a mic, but with my setup, I can't really set it up. So, yeah, because you're doing too many things at once. Normal reverb. Yeah, there might be a bit of reverberation because of the area that I'm sitting in. That's part of why I shut my mic off when we're listening to the desktop audio because that creates a really weird echo. So, you might just have really astute hearing and you're picking up on the general echo in the room. Oh, okay. Yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it. I was gonna say, I know my audio quality isn't the best, but I know it's not like completely terrible anymore. Like I've learned a little bit, a little bit. Okay. So let's find out what all women wonder. Let's see if I wonder it. Let's see if there's any, if it's still prescient 100 years later.
Section 5 of A Guide to Men by Helen Rowland. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. What Every Woman Wonders. There are gardens full of flowers that I feared to pluck. There are eyes full of promises that I dared not believe. There are lips full of sweetness from which I turned away. I wonder if paradise holds anything for me, one half so beautiful as the joys I have renounced for its sake. A man's life is like a musical comedy. There is always one woman in it who is the star, but it takes 99 others to make up the ensemble. Nothing so annoys a man as to have a woman cheer him up while he is enjoying the exquisite luxury of feeling sorry for himself. The modern girl's perfect candour has taken the sin out of sincerity, and most of the sweet scent out of the flower of sentiment. Without the serpent, the Garden of Eden would seem a dull old place to most men. Love is neither a bonfire nor a kitchen fire, but an altar fire to be kept burning for ever with prayer and reverence. In the language of love, forever means for quite a little while, and never means not until next season. A fool there was, and he made his prayer to two women on the same party wire. Love is a matter of give and take, marriage a matter of misgive and mistake. Even a fool knows enough to laugh at a man's joke, but only a born siren knows enough to hang on to his coat lapel and beg him to tell it again. Some men are born for matrimony, some achieve matrimony, but most of them are merely poor dodgers. There are many times when a woman would gladly drop her husband if she did not feel morally certain that some other woman would come right along and pick him up. Alas, in choosing a husband it seems that you've always got to decide between something tame and uninteresting, like a goldfish, and something wild and fascinating, like a mountain goat. Perhaps the first time a young man actually realizes that he is married is when he catches himself looking at other women with that strange, new, wistful sort of interest. It is at once the mission and the punishment of the flirt to go through life tapping the hearts of men, that they may overflow for other women. The sweetest things in a woman's life are her yesterdays, the sweetest things in a man's life are his tomorrows. The man who is fondly looking for a perfect angel almost invariably ends by marrying some little devil who knows how to persuade him that her horns are merely the signs of a budding halo. Woman is to most men what heart failure is to the doctors, something that it is always convenient to blame any old thing on. The mind has 1,000 eyes, the heart but one, and that usually goes fast asleep after marriage. Philosophy is the only kind of sweetening with which to make life palatable. Estimated from a wife's experience, the average man spends fully 1/4 of his life in looking for his shoes. An idealist is a man who is content to worship a woman from afar and to let some gross, unselfish materialist marry her and support her. Changing husbands is about as satisfactory as changing a bundle from one hand to the other. It gives you only temporary relief. France may claim the happiest marriages in the world, but the happiest divorces in the world are made in America. No doubt, even Solomon told each of his 700 wives that he had merely thought he loved the others, but that she was the only girl he ever really cared for in just that way. Love is what makes a man appear blissfully happy when a woman is mussing up the precious wisp of hair across his bald spot. Love is what makes a woman laugh delightedly when a man is telling her for the second time a story which she knew by heart before he told it to her the first time. All this sex antagonism must have started when Adam brought in the first rabbit and ordered Eve to make it into chicken a la king. When a man takes a notion to marry, he doesn't start following it up, he merely stops running away. A woman is young until the light dies out of her last lover's eyes. Whenever a pretty woman runs her fingers through his hair, a cautious bachelor can't help thinking of what happened to Samson. Success in flirtation, as in gambling, consists in getting out of the game at the psychological moment before your luck begins to turn. Being a husband's economic equal may be awfully noble and advanced, but it usually means being all of his ribs and most of his vertebrae. Men have been classified as what women marry. They have 2 feet, 2 hands, and sometimes 2 wives, but never more than 1 collar button or 1 idea at a time. When a man says, "Nobody understands me," don't fancy he is suffering. He is merely trying to let you know, in a modest way, that he is a profound, fascinating mystery. A man snatches the first kiss, pleads for the second, demands the third, takes the fourth, accepts the fifth, and endures all the rest of them. After 2 years, an engagement doesn't need to be broken. It just naturally sags in the middle and comes apart. Eve had as much choice in the matter of a husband as any other woman. She merely accepted what fate sent her and pretended to have got her ideal. It is not much comfort to be able to keep your husband's material body in the house evenings, when his astral body keeps wandering off to the club every few minutes. In love, sweet are the uses of diversity. A woman's love bursts into flower, but, judging from the time it takes him to discover it, a man's love must be developed by the wearisome process of geological formation. If a man and a diamond are big and brilliant enough, one doesn't mind a few flaws in them, but for some reason, heaven knows why, a woman and a pearl are expected to be absolutely perfect. When fate places a laurel wreath on the brow of a genius, she hitches a plough to his shoulders and holds a Tantalus cup to his lips. It isn't the man who paints his virtues in 3 colours and begs her to marry him, but the one who paints his sins in vermilion and begs her to save him, who usually wins the girl. If you want a man to propose, don't try to make your family coddle him. Make them hate him, because a man never really takes hold until somebody begins to pull the other way. The man who falls in love at first sight never knows what has struck him, and therefore mercifully escapes all the agonizing slow torture of feeling himself sink, inch by inch, into the quicksands of matrimony. Never believe that justice is all you owe your husband. What every man needs from the woman who loves him is faith, hope, and charity, and above all, mercy. Even a coquette can be loyal to one man until she prefers another, but a man's heart is like a ferry boat, always going backward and forward, and never staying docked. Soft, sweet things with a lot of fancy dressing, that is what a little boy loves to eat, and a grown man prefers to marry. Second interlude. To find your mate, that is luck. To know him when you find him, that is inspiration. To win him when you know him, that is art. And to keep him when you've won him, that is a miracle. A woman wastes more time in dreaming over a past flirtation than it would take a man to start a half-dozen new ones. Flattery affects a man like any other sort of dope. It stimulates and exhilarates him for the moment, but usually ends by going to his head and making him act foolish. The only way to be happy in this world is to take men and flirtations as they come, and let them go as they go. Almost any straight path of devotion will lead to a woman's heart. It's this zigzagging from sentiment to cold fear, and from adoration to self-preservation, that makes the way so long and dangerous for the average man. Solomon may have been the most famous husband who ever lived, but as a hero he isn't in it with the man who manages to get along happily and contentedly all through life with just one wife. Woman, the peg on which the wit hangs his jest, the preacher his text, the cynic his grouch, and the sinner his justification. Everybody seems to be going through life at automobile speed nowadays, but alas, there are no sentimental garages by life's wayside at which we may obtain a fresh supply of emotions, purchase a new thrill, or patch up an exploded ideal. A man's work lasts from sun to sun, but his excuses for staying late at the office are never done. Every man wants a woman to appeal to his better side, his nobler instincts, and his higher nature, and another woman to help him forget them. Never rush into a love affair. Love is a waiting game, which requires nerve, concentration, and a poker face. The average man marries one woman just in order to escape from a lot of others, and then flirts with a lot of others just in order to forget that he is married to one. Once a girl's heart beat faster at the sound of her sweetheart's footstep on the garden path, but now it requires the hum of a 12-cylinder motor car to rouse her from her lassitude. The one thing about love-making that the modern man simply can't understand is that, in order to make it thrilling and interesting, he must really put a little love in it. In the war of the sexes, a woman hides her scars of battle beneath a smile and a coat of rouge. A man goes about displaying his as proudly as though they were medals. Occasionally, one meets a man who plunges into a love affair as he plunges into the surf, but most of them just sit back lazily on the beach and let the waves of emotion splash harmlessly over them. End of section 5.
No, that chapter title was not accurate. Maybe it was accurate for women in the 1920s, but I doubt it. But no, I haven't wondered any of what that was talking about. All right, I think I'm gonna leave this one where it is. I'm just gonna clean up this edge real quick before I go to a new chapter. I do still think this is an interesting listen. Again, I think this author is quite witty, but a lot of this is really played out tropes that have been around for a long time. It has been a really long time since I have really played with any sort of portraiture. And this is still a cartoonish rendering, but I haven't done anything like this in a while, so I thought this would be a fun, different thing. I'm going to start a new canvas and maybe, hmm, who else is famous from the 1920s? Hold, please. I'll go with this one. So I'm going to do Pauline Stark. Think that's going to be the next um, 20s actress that I attempt. And yeah, as for that last chapter, it was incorrect. I definitely do not, I've never wondered anything that was in that chapter. So this next one is called Brides, and in parentheses, syncopations. Should be interesting.
Section 6 of A Guide to Men by Helen Rowland. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Brides. Nevers for the rib. Never ask him to kiss you. Make your kisses a privilege, not a duty, a luxury, not a morning and evening chore. Never refuse to kiss him, but sometimes keep him waiting a little. Love thrives so much better on the stimulant of suspense.
No, you can refuse to kiss people. You don't have to keep them waiting. You can just flat out refuse.
Than on the anesthetic of memory. Never question him about his past love affairs. It is not the women he has loved, but those he has not yet loved, who will bother you. Never fling your old flames in his face. If you do, he will soon cease to be jealous of the men you might have married, and begin to envy them. Never accuse him of being less ardent than he was before he married you. Many a husband would never discover that he was no longer madly in love if his wife did not constantly keep reminding him of it. Never chide him for the same.
No, this is by Helen Rowland. It was written in 1922, and it's a guide to men. Hi. Um, if you're curious, you can find more information on it there. Um, it's been interesting. The author is quite witty. There's a few uh-ohs in it. There's been a few spots that are like, eh. But there's been at least a few times where I've laughed so hard I snorted. Um, the author is very witty, but it is 100 years old and it's relationship advice. It's interesting. It's been interesting. We just finished A War of the Worlds, and before we move on to a time machine, I wanted to break inner H.G. Wells. So I found this, and it's been interesting. I am I haven't practiced doing any like portraiture type stuff in a while, so I'm drawing 1920s actresses. Um, doo-doo-doo. I'm trying to draw some 1920s actresses, just doing a little bit of practice while we listen to this wonderful thing. Couldn't be my dog. She's all about giving hugs, kisses, and snuggles to any person in range. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's been interesting. Um, so I already drew one. I'm gonna try Pauline Stark next. We'll see how it goes. Let me switch my audio back over. But thanks for stopping by, Juki Holic. Hope all is well with you.
Fault more than once. A man can become so accustomed to the thought of his own faults that he will begin to cherish them as charming little personal characteristics. Never refer to your own defects. A man always accepts a woman at her own valuation, and he doesn't prize anything that advertises herself as a second. Never laugh at him. Woman is supposed to be the only human joke, and man the only laughing animal, except the hyena. Never cry before him. A woman's tears soon wash all the colour out of a man's love. After the third deluge they have no power to move him, except to move him out of the house. Never threaten him, scold him, nor argue with him. Act. A woman's arguments affect a man as water does a cat. He simply waits for them to dry up, and then he goes out and does as he pleases. Never doubt his word, even when you know he is lying. A husband is like religion. To give you any real comfort, he must be taken with blind faith. Never put him on a leash. The dog, or the husband, that has to be tied is always the one that eventually has to be advertised in the lost columns. Never forget that marriage should be a privilege, not a prison, home a refectory, not a reformatory, and wives jolliers and not jailers. Syncopations. The greatest shock a temperamental woman can receive is to wake up and find that she is married to a human being instead of an ideal. A soulmate is seldom the siren who manages to drive a man to distraction, but just the sympathetic little thing who always happens to come along when he is looking for distraction. Hanging on a man's word may flatter him, but hanging on his neck merely frightens him. Every gay dog has his day after. One may be loved forever. It is the vain desire to go on being a heartbreaker after one's flirting days are over that constitutes the real tragedy of age. A man regards a woman's love first as an unattainable dream, then as a boon, then as a blessing, then as a right, then as a matter of course, and last as a punishment. A man's idea of preserving the unities is to find out what side of an argument his wife is on, and then take the other side, in order to keep it from sagging. After a bachelor's heart has been patched up, cut down, and remodelled to fit the romantic ideal of one girl after another, there is seldom enough of it left to go all the way around the honeymoon. There is no question of degree in matrimony. You can be a little bit in love, or a little bit ill, but you can't be a little bit married or a little bit dead. Telling lies is a fault in a boy, an art in a lover, an accomplishment in a bachelor, and second nature in a married man. If your husband is wrapped up in his work from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., you needn't bother to investigate his morals. Satan wouldn't waste his talents trying to tempt a man with so little time and energy for the devil's business. You can't argue, frighten, or nag a man into loving you just because he ought to. Because, dearie, love is not exactly a man's feeling for a thought censor, a creditor, or a critic on the hearth. There are more ways of killing a man's love than by strangling it to death, but that's the usual way. In matters of the heart, most men are still in a state of barbarism, slightly tempered by woman. A man is never old until his spirit is worn out, his rosy hopes have turned grey, his illusions have faded, and he has wrinkles on his heart. An optimist is merely an ex-pessimist, with his pockets full of money, his digestion in good condition, and his wife in the country. Every time a man hits a woman's vanity, he makes a dent in her love. A man's first lie wounds a woman's heart, the second breaks it, the third mends it, and all the rest simply harden it. Dissimulation is the price of peace, but it's awfully hard for a married woman to preserve the peace by deceiving her husband into thinking that he is deceiving her every time he tries. Of course men are not so suspicious as women. A woman in love would be jealous of a store dummy, but how can a man possibly suspect that any girl on whom he may bestow himself could ever think of anybody else? A good woman inspires a man, a brilliant woman interests him, a beautiful woman fascinates him, but the considerate woman gets him. There never was a man too near-sighted to see the look of admiration in a pretty woman's eyes. Wife, the woman from whom a man failed to escape, and to whom he complacently refers as the little woman I married. Marriage, the intermission between the wedding and the divorce. Wedding, the point at which a man stops toasting a woman and begins roasting her. Most girls, nowadays, would give a lot for a few solid vows, a few unshrinkable signs of devotion, and a really convincing kiss. It isn't a husband's disinclination to listen to his wife's conversation, but that "I am ready to bear with you" expression with which he does it, that grates on her nerves so. The average man has so much heart that he apparently thinks it is a pity to waste it all on one woman. Alas, why is it that when your cup of happiness is full, somebody always jogs your elbow? Never judge a man's love by the ardour of his first kiss, nor by the tenderness of his second, but by the eagerness with which he seeks the third. When it comes to making love, a girl can always listen so much faster than a man can talk. If nothing but their heartstrings became entangled, people would not find the marriage tie so binding. It is a man's purse strings and a woman's apron strings that really form the Gordian knot. In love, a man loses first his head, then his vanity, then his poise, and last of all his heart. It is much more comfortable to be considered a little devil and get a credit mark every time you do anything right, than to be considered an angel and get a black mark every time you do anything human. Love is a game at which a woman must play against stacked cards and without the slightest inkling of the trump. A woman's last resort is henna, a man's Gehenna. To a woman, marriage is the beginning of life. To a man it is the end of liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Perfect wife, that which a married man always fancies he might have gotten if he had kept on experimenting a little longer. Why is it that, no matter how much a man thinks of one girl, he can't help thinking of a lot of others at the same time? Don't waste time trying to break a man's heart. Be satisfied if you can just manage to chip it in a brand new place. End of section 6.
I do think there's an element of satire. There's there's some witty lines in and out. Sometimes it gets really tragic. Sometimes it's just overplayed tropes. Um, but yeah. Uh That was supposed to be about brides. Next up is about divorces. And I think it's starting to like wear on me a bit because it started out very witty and yeah, some moments and everything, but now it just seems like a lot of the same stuff on repeat, just finding different words to say the same thing. So I don't know. I am having trouble with this sketch though, because she is at a really weird angle. Like the chin is at this really weird angle. Like she's like turned and like I don't even know how to show it. Um, but I am having trouble with Miss Stark here because of the angle that she's at. But I'm gonna push ahead and see what I can make out of it. Next up, we're gonna hear about divorces, or in parentheses, the third interlude. So it ought to be interesting. Let's see what happens. Yeah, there are some clever looks at relationships in the 1920s. Like I said, this author is definitely quite witty. She is quite witty in areas. Even when she says some stuff that's not the greatest, like she seems to say it in at least an interesting way. So I don't know. We're gonna continue on. Let's hear about divorces. Also, Juki, I don't know. I know you haven't well you haven't talked much. Maybe you've lurked in here before, but I don't have an audio set up to where I can have the desktop audio and the microphone working at the same time and have it sound okay. So I don't talk when it's playing, and I have to pause it when I want to talk and switch the audios back over. Um, so if you're wondering, that's what's happening there. That's why I don't comment. Although you can probably I pretty much wear my what I'm thinking on my face, so you can probably tell what I think of stuff that's being said. But I'm also trying to draw this lady, and I'm having trouble. Yeah, the speakers do talk to the mic.
Section 7 of A Guide to Men by Helen Rowland. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Divorces. It is quite correct to send your former husband a gift on the anniversary of your divorce, in remembrance of the many happy days which you have spent apart. Love, the quest. Marriage, the conquest. Divorce, the inquest. Most marriages nowadays seem built for speed rather than for endurance. A divorcee is one who has graduated from the correspondence school of experience. Marriage, according to the merry widow Reno, is a perfectly lovely experience to have had. Grass widow, the angel whom a man loved, the human being he married, and the devil he divorced. Most actresses are married, now and then, most literary women, on and off, most society women, from time to time. In olden days the lover cried, in burning words and brave, "O darling, be my queen, my bride, and let me be your slave." But nowadays he murmurs, over cigarette and tea, "Say, when you get your next divorce, will you, puff, marry me?" When a woman obtains her second divorce, one hardly knows whether to class her as a good loser, a bad chooser, or just a poor sport. Why is it that when a man hears that a woman has had a past, he is always so anxious to brighten up her present? Many a woman's sole reason for getting a divorce is because she is tired of holding on to heaven with one hand and onto a man with the other. When two people decide to get a divorce, it isn't a sign that they don't understand one another, but a sign that they have, at last, begun to. That just after the divorce feeling is not the exhilarating thing many people imagine it. It is more like the mingled sensation of pain and relief that comes the moment after you have removed a tight slipper and before the ache has subsided. Divorce is the great divide, over which most men expect to pass into the happy hunting grounds. Reno, the land of the free and the grave of the home. Third interlude. In the abstract, a man admires nobility and intelligence in a woman, but in the concrete he always prefers a bird of paradise to a wren, a decoration to an inspiration, and incense to common sense. Intuition is what a man calls a girl's ability to see through him before marriage. Suspicion is what he calls it after marriage. Satan himself could no doubt make any woman love him if he took the trouble to convince her that it was her beauty that drove him to Hades. Of course, polygamy is dreadful, but at least an Oriental wife can come within 4 or 5 guesses of knowing where her husband spends his evenings. Take care of a woman's vanity, and her love will take care of itself. Ever since Eve started it all by offering Adam the apple, woman's punishment has been to have to supply a man with food and then suffer the consequences when it disagrees with him. The wings of love are not clipped by marriage, they merely molt for lack of exercise. All love is 99.44% pure. Pure imagination, pure vanity, pure curiosity, pure folly, or
So, again, this was written in 1922, and I don't know what one had to do with the other. Like, I don't understand what polygamy. I don't. We can rewind 30 seconds. I'll rewind in a few seconds. But again, if you want to check this out on your own, this is a website where volunteers read books that are in the public domain. So everything on this site is old and in the public domain. And I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff that's in the public domain now. Um, but yeah, so that's what we're listening to right now. We're in the chapter on divorce. Oh, okay. Um, so I don't understand that either because, like, right before that, the topic was polygamy. And then, like, I I don't understand it. I'm not tracking this one. Maybe you had to be there, like, in the 20s and this would make more sense, but this part makes no sense to me. But I'll rewind it a bit.
woman's punishment has been to have to supply a man with food and then suffer the consequences when it disagrees with him. The wings of love are not clipped by marriage, they merely molt for lack. Suspicion is what he calls it after marriage. Satan himself. Third interlude. In the abstract, a man admires nobility and intelligence in a woman, but in the concrete he always prefers a bird of paradise to a wren, a decoration to an inspiration, and incense to common sense. Intuition is what a man calls a girl's ability to see through him before marriage. Suspicion is what he calls it after marriage. Satan himself could no doubt make any woman love him if he took the trouble to convince her that it was her beauty that drove him to Hades. Of course, polygamy is dreadful, but at least an Oriental wife can come within 4 or 5 guesses of knowing where her husband spends his evenings.
Yeah, see, it still made no sense. Like, I don't, like, was that a stereotype back then that people in the Orient were into polygamy? I have no idea. Like, I don't understand the context and what that meant. I didn't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Unless polygamy had a different meaning 100 years ago. That doesn't track for me though. Is polygamy common in the Orient? Is that a thing? Yeah. But again, the what we're listening to is from 100 years ago, so things that we don't use anymore. I don't know, maybe that sentence doesn't make sense to me. I obviously lack some sort of context that makes that sentence make sense. But anyway, let's get back to it.
Take care of a woman's vanity, and her love will take care of itself. Ever since Eve started it all by offering Adam the apple, woman's punishment has been to have to supply a man with food and then suffer the consequences when it disagrees with him. The wings of love are not clipped by marriage, they merely molt for lack of exercise. All love is 99.44% pure. Pure imagination, pure vanity, pure curiosity, pure folly, or whatever else it happens to be. Don't waste your tears on the girls a heartbreaker should have married and didn't. Save them for the girl he will marry and shouldn't. It requires a little moisture to make a postage stamp stick, and a little cold water of indifference to make a sweetheart stick. There are only two kinds of perfectly faultless men, the dead and the deadly. In order to see a man in his most interesting colours, a woman always has to scrape off a lot of unnecessary whitewashing. Marriage is a discord that turns love's old sweet song from a eulogy into an elegy. The height of the average girl's ambition is just about 6 feet. You can always cure a man of lovesickness with mental suggestion, merely by suggesting to him that the girl is trying to marry him. Marriage is the operation by which a woman's vanity and a man's egotism are extracted without an anaesthetic. Jealousy is the false alarm that wakes us up from love's young dream. The most successful men are not those who have been inspired by a wise woman's love, but those who have perspired in order to gratify a foolish woman's whims. It is easier to keep half a dozen lovers guessing than to keep one lover after he has stopped guessing. A man's soul lies so close to his digestion that when he looks blue and downhearted, a woman never knows whether to offer him a kiss, a meal, a dose of philosophy, or a dyspepsia tablet. A woman is so complex that she can prove to a man by every possible convincing argument that she feels nothing but platonic friendship for him, at the same time that she is thinking how she would like to run her fingers through his hair. One reason why a man's life is so much fuller than a woman's is because he spends nearly 3/4 of it in hunting up things for a woman to do. Oh yes, a woman always looks up to a brave, strong man whom she can respect, and then, 9 times out of 10, goes and marries some pallid weakling whom she can mother. A man spends his boyhood struggling against an education, his youth struggling against matrimony, and his middle age struggling against embonpoint, but sooner or later he succumbs to all of them. No man wants an equal, but an angel. If Satan himself should decide to marry, he wouldn't go around looking for a congenial little Satanette, but for a paragon who had a pull with St. Peter. Half a love is better than none. End of section 7.
That one was quite the chapter. Satan's popping in and out of this way more than I expected. Yeah. All right. There's not too much left of this. There's 5 chapters, but every chapter is less than 10 minutes. That chapter is probably the worst chapter so far. I was not a fan of that one. Um, yeah. Okay. Let's see. Next up, we were just listening to divorces, I believe. Next up, we're talking about widows. So we'll see how this one goes.
Section 8 of A Guide to Men by Helen Rowland. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Widows. A widow is a fascinating being with the flavour of maturity, the spice of experience, the piquancy of novelty, the tang of practised coquetry, and the halo of one man's approval. Second mourning is that interesting period at which a widow continues to weep with one eye while she begins to flirt with the other. When a widow comes in at the door, a débutante's chances fly out of the window. No matter how many wrinkles a widow may have in her face, she always has enough at her fingertips to offset them. Even a dead husband gives a widow some advantage over a spinster. The very debts her husband left afford her something to boast about to the unmarried woman who has only her own board bills to pay. A girl takes a man for better or for worse, but a widow merely takes him for granted. Girls are the milk and honey which sweeten a man's life, widows the caviar and wine which relieve its flatness and give it spice and piquancy. A girl knows exactly what kind of man she wants to marry, but a widow knows all the kinds she doesn't want to marry, and usually makes a safe selection by the wise process of elimination. A widow's chief consolation in remarrying is probably that she finds it less exhausting to sit up and wait for one man to come home evenings than to sit up and wait for a lot of them to go home. Widows have all the honour and glory without any of the trials of matrimony. A live husband may be a necessity, but a dead one is a luxury. Matrimony is the price of love, widowhood the rebate.
I really don't think this author likes guys. Like, I just.
Improvisations. Spring flowers are like spring love, so sweet and tender, but doomed to fade quickly. It's in the autumn of life, or of the year, that we get the hardy variety of either. A man may honestly admire a superior woman, but when it comes to marrying, he usually looks about for something far enough beneath him to enjoy being ordered about and patted on the head. A girl's heart is like her dressing table, crowded with tenderly cherished little souvenirs of love. A man's, like his pipe, is carefully cleaned and emptied after each flame has gone out. A man doesn't ask a girl to "name the day" anymore. He merely pleads guilty to loving her.
Of course I'm muted. Hi, welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Justin Freakin. And I spelled this wrong. Thank you. Thank you to Gun America for rating in. we're in the middle of a weird one tonight. Thank you for the raid. How did your stream go? Hope it was well. Zero, thank you for stopping by. I hope the book tonight does not influence your dreams. Let me give you a shout out before you get out of here. Zero is a wonderful, wonderful artist, far more practiced than I, and also does a lot with AI. Do we have to refresh after reading so we actually count for your viewer count? I don't think you do past shelf date. I don't think so. Um, Twitch is just weird with stuff like that. But anyway, hi, welcome if you're new here. I'm HR. I draw things. We listen to audiobooks that are in the public domain. Sometimes we play games. Sometimes you guys make me eat jelly beans that either taste good or not. We just try to have fun around here. Tonight, we are getting relationship advice from the 1920s. We are working on A Guide to Men by Helen Rowland, written in 1922. If you want to follow along, you can link to the book there if you want to go back. There's some cringe moments in this book. Thank you so much for following. I spelled this wrong. Thank you for the raid and all the follows. I appreciate it. So we draw stuff and we listen to audiobooks. We just finished War of the Worlds. We're probably going to go to the Time Machine next week. Thank you, Dutch. I'm a little nervous now, though, because if you kick off a hype train, I'm going to have to eat a bean, and I'm not a fan of that. But thank you. What just happened? Why did it do it again? Fom! I have a wild Fom in my chat. Fom, I'm really glad to see you. I miss your stream so much, but I'm really glad you're taking time for your health and your mental health. And thank you for way back in the day for that gift that you gifted me. I am making, oh no! I am making use of it. Dang it. Okay, so, hi, I'm HR. We draw stuff. We did this little sketch earlier. Thank you for the bits, Hellbound. Dang it. I'll explain the deal in a second. So tonight I'm just practicing some sketch. Oh no, here we go. Thank you for the bits, Bomb. So tonight I'm practicing sketching some 1920s artists. However, we do other fun stuff. So once a month or so, I have a prompt night. And last time, the prompt that I was given was a anthropomorphic bug in an uwu style that was stoic at the beach, walking their face hugger. Oh man! Here we go. I need to like put the iPad in front of the emotes. So yeah, sometimes we draw some really random stuff like an uwu face hugger walking on the beach. Sometimes I draw ladies. Sometimes we do gender bends of beloved characters. We draw a lot of stuff on here. We just have some fun and we draw things. Oh my gosh. Okay, thank you, Dutch. Thank you, Hellbound. So let me explain what's gonna. What happened? Thank you again, Hellbound? I think the sounds are behind. Okay, so let me explain what's gonna happen. If you complete. Oh yeah, my closed captions pull from another dimension, so I highly recommend turning them on. If you complete a level 3 hype train, I have to do the Beanboozled. I will spin the spinner if you complete level 3 hype train, and I'm either gonna get a nice treat or like last time I got a vomit flavored bean. That was not fun. That was not fun at all. So yes, I will spin the Beanboozled spinner if you guys complete level 3, but you're only at level 2 for right now. Cannibal Anthropomorphic Donut. Yes, so this was an overlay edition redeem. I have a lot of fun rewards if you want to check them out. This was the donut overlay edition. So the overlay edition redeem, when you redeem that one, I draw something and it sits on my stream above my head like the donut is now. And when someone else redeems it, it retires to the coffee bar. So these are past redeems. Ah, fun! Oh my goodness, fun! Multiplying the bits by the bits. Ah! Thank you, Dutch. Um, so yeah, this is the coffee bar where overlay editions go when they're redeemed. Pumpkins is right over here. This is his farm owl. Friggin' Kerno, yeah. Kerno had me put property of Kerno on there, and I've banned text since then. But the one that I wish View Only Mood redeemed this one, and it looked pretty cool. I really liked how this came out, like an old test pattern. Um, so yeah. Ah, you guys are like 25% there. But yeah, we basically just draw stuff on here. And listen to audiobooks in the public domain, and we've been getting relationship advice from the 1920s. It's been interesting. So yeah, we draw stuff, we listen to audiobooks. Some nights I do Zen line type art, which is pretty cool. Some of it's pretty cool, some of it's not as good. It comes out how it comes out. Ah, hellbound. You do not admit to being old enough for test patterns. Yeah, so we draw cool stuff. Oh no, you guys are at 63%. Dang it. I am gonna have to go get a trash can because, yeah, not fun. Oh man. But yeah, welcome if you're new. Hopefully you have fun here. We do some fun stuff. Um, also, also, I did not expect to like have this many people. Ah, Reggie! You just made it so I have to eat a bean. That's what's going on, Reggie. Dang it. Um, well, we're getting pretty close to 200 followers. I'm gonna have to do some sort of special stream for that. So I am gonna wait till the hype train closes out before I eat this bean. But these are the combinations. These are what I might get. I redeemed history, so I get that. So I get on that, sister. You redeemed history? I didn't see that. Hold on. Hold, please. You did redeem history. Okay. So, oh man, past shelf date is rough. Okay. Yeah, if you somehow like go to level 6, then I'm gonna have to eat 2 beans. But right now it is locked in. I will be eating 1 bean at the close of this hype train. Anyway, we have a redeem for random history. For random history, I'm gonna see what happened today in history. So today in history, this is the day that the people at the Alamo called for help. So that was a thing that happened today in history. Um, Today in history, the Zimmerman telegram was presented to a U.S. ambassador, and that help was late. Yeah, yeah. Um, One of my personal favorite things was the Supreme Court did a good thing. And this one is like particularly kind of juicy. This was a Supreme Court case in 1988. The Supreme Court defended the right to satirize public figures because in 1983, 5 years earlier, Hustler magazine did a satire um of a really like I wouldn't draw this type of art, but they did a satire of the Reverend Jerry Falwell. Oh my gosh, Reggie, why are you trying to make me eat two beans? Also, thank you. Um, I don't even know what it's at. What is it at? Oh, it's still at level 4. I'm still safe for now. Okay. Man, Fom, you picked a great day to show back up. Okay, but yeah, so in 1988, February 24th, even though it's technically the 25th, we haven't gone to bed yet, it's the 24th. It's still the 24th somewhere. Why would I do? Because what if I accidentally get 2 bad ones? That will be terrible. Reggie! Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I am not excited about having to eat 2 beans. Okay, so anyway, 1988, Supreme Court. The Reverend Jerry Falwell, yes, the famous Reverend Jerry Falwell, not Jerry Falwell Jr., the original. Oh my gosh, Reggie. Um, Thank you, but also um, okay, so the Supreme Court voted unanimously 8-0 that you could satire um famous public figures. Level 4 is complete. There's still a ways to go till that second bean though, so I still think I'm safe. But also, thank you for all the bits and all of the gift subs and all of that. But anyway, that Jerry Falwell had originally got awarded $200,000 by a lower court, and the Supreme Court overturned that and kind of Reggie. Oh my gosh. Reggie, that's insanity. Why would you do that? Thank you so much. But you have completed level 5. How much is it on level 6? Oh my gosh, you're 64%. Dang it. Hey, Shadow, I'm gonna need the trash can as a just in case. Please. No. No, like the one out of the bathroom, please. And if you're new here, Shadow never appears on stream. That's why it's called Shadow, because you sometimes see his shadow, but you never see him. Except for that one time, accidentally. Thought you were saying you wanted 2 beans? We've got a trash can ready. I think you kind of broke the stream too, because the notifications are coming late. But yeah, anyway, hopefully, Dutch, you enjoyed the This Day in History. That's one of my favorite This Day in Histories that I've ever had come up is that Supreme Court decision. Because I knew about that Supreme Court decision. I didn't know it was like an anniversary of today. So that's a cool thing for today. And if you want to go back even further, it's also when Andrew Johnson was impeached in 1868. So hopefully you enjoyed that history. All right, we're really close to closing this out. I'm gonna clear out that reward to make my OCD happy. So we're just hanging out for a second here because I'm about to have to eat a bean. No, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna take the first bean because if you get to a second one, it'll give me time to process. So you could be about to give me a nice treat, or you could be about to see me have to run off screen and take a break. So we've got our Beanboozle beans. Ah, and I do not have a great system for this portion, but I just want you to see what's going to happen here so you can see what it lands on. Here we go. Let's see if I can keep this in focus. Actually, this does better if it's in the container. All right, here we go. Let's see what we get. Ah, so we are on. Oh no, it's peach or barf again. Crap. Last time I got a barf one. Oh, this spinner is rigged. All right, so now we gotta find one that is that particular color. I think that one ought to do it. Let me shut the camera off. And I'm still holding the bean right here. We put the lid back on the beans. Okay. All right. So. Ah! Hellbound! Why would you do that? What if this one is barf? No! Like, thank you. But also, ah! Okay. So, this is either going to be peach or barf flavored. And the peach and barf flavored ones are pretty close to the color of the dead fish slash strawberry banana smoothie one. So, Reggie! So it really could be either one at this point. Um, so here we go. Wish me luck. Have a snack. Oh my gosh, Parker. Wish me luck. Here we go. Oh my gosh. Did it do the level 6? Did it do the level 6? Only 83% on the level 6. You did not complete the level 6. This will be the only bean that I eat today. I really hope it's not puke like the last one was. Okay. All right. Let's see. Here we go. A puke. And puke flavor. Oh God. I'm gonna try to swallow it, but trying to force myself to swallow this, I might end up spitting it out, but I also don't want to leave it in my mouth. Ah, hope y'all know I love you. Ew. Ew. Oh my. Okay. Nope, I can't. I can't. Oh, I can't swallow it. Oh, a little malort. What is malort? Oh, oh, Reggie. Oh, excuse me, Reggie. This is like 2 weeks in a row. I got so lucky the first couple of times we did this, and now not so much. Ugh. Mm. Mm. Oh, no. Ew. Okay, if you can stand it, these are interesting. I think that spinner is rigged because it landed on Bart last time. Oh, what did I do? See a train to eh. Oh, excuse me. Nope, nope, nope. I love y'all and I appreciate you so much. But if I like don't go get some mouthwash, I'm going to do the flavor of that bean. Thank you so much for all the bits and the gift subs and all the stuff. I will come back. We will get back to 1920s relationship advice and drawing in a minute. Oh my gosh. Excuse me. If you're still here when I get back, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you. If you leave, thank you for the time that you were here. Excuse me. We're gonna put on our favorite game to play. I'll try to monitor the comments while I'm gone. But oh, okay. Might burn the flavor out, maybe. I'm gonna put on Gardic. Have fun. Take some guesses if you want. Don't if you don't. If you're elsewhere on the internet lands, I will see you around town. I will be back in a few minutes. I need to be right back. Oh, oh, it's awful. Yeah. Options, autopilot. There we go. Here you go. Y'all have fun. I'll be right back. Ugh. Real quick, if you've never played this before, just type what you think any of the images are in the comments. And you don't have to sign in or anything. You can just type, and that's how you play. Have fun. No, it doesn't have actual alcohol in it with the way my dental issues are. We use gentler stuff. Ow. Someone please type exclamation point Laura. Laura is 14, and when she wants some attention, she gets attention. And type exclamation point Laura. She's been on stream way more than 26 times, but sometimes we forget. But usually she just comes up and says hello for a second and then comes and sits next to me. I think she's just worried about me. Yeah, you smell that. I know you do. Over here. Um, I'm gonna assume you're talking about cats. I hope. Um, Also, congratulations anyone that's still here from that hype train. Um, I'm still burping because that was awful, and you've earned the burps, so enjoy that. Um, we're going to try and get back to our drawing for a little bit. I really want to try and finish this book. We are on, excuse me, Widows, and there's less than 20 minutes or so left to this book. So I want to finish it. I'm gonna rewind this chapter for your enjoyment. Anyone that's new here, I don't have an audio set up where I can talk and listen to the audio at the same time. So I'll be pausing the book if I need to respond to something. As a reminder, this book is from 1922, so some of the stuff is outdated, some of the language is a little at times. But it's been interesting. Very witty author. And next week, yes, some. And I've been just doing some sketch practice. I'm having some difficulty with this one because it's an interesting like chin angle that she's at. Just a 7-ish-year-old puppy. Um, so anyway, we are on the chapter about entitled Widows. And then there's only 4 chapters left after this. So I'm gonna stay on a little late and try and finish this up. And then we're gonna start the time machine on Monday. I do stream Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Excuse me. And again, all of you who contributed to that hype train, it's your fault. I'm gonna be burping probably for the rest of the stream. But anyway, let's dive back into the book. Should be interesting.
Section 8 of A Guide to Men by Helen Rowland. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Widows. A widow is a fascinating being with the flavour of maturity, the spice of experience, the piquancy of novelty, the tang of practised coquetry, and the halo of one man's approval. Second mourning is that interesting period at which a widow continues to weep with one eye while she begins to flirt with the other. When a widow comes in at the door, a débutante's chances fly out of the window. No matter how many wrinkles a widow may have in her face, she always has enough at her fingertips to offset them. Even a dead husband gives a widow some advantage over a spinster. The very debts her husband left afford her something to boast about to the unmarried woman who has only her own board bills to pay. A girl takes a man for better or for worse, but a widow merely takes him for granted. Girls are the milk and honey which sweeten a man's life, widows the caviar and wine which relieve its flatness and give it spice and piquancy. A girl knows exactly what kind of man she wants to marry, but a widow knows all the kinds she doesn't want to marry, and usually makes a safe selection by the wise process of elimination. A widow's chief consolation in remarrying is probably that she finds it less exhausting to sit up and wait for one man to come home evenings than to sit up and wait for a lot of them to go home. Widows have all the honour and glory without any of the trials of matrimony. A live husband may be a necessity, but a dead one is a luxury. Matrimony is the price of love, widowhood the rebate.
I don't know if you were lurking in the chat tons, but I was just beanboozled on stream. Oh, excuse me.
Improvisations. Spring flowers are like spring love, so sweet and tender, but doomed to fade quickly. It's in the autumn of life, or of the year, that we get the hardy variety of either. A man may honestly admire a superior woman, but when it comes to marrying, he usually looks about for something far enough beneath him to enjoy being ordered about and patted on the head. A girl's heart is like her dressing table, crowded with tenderly cherished little souvenirs of love. A man's, like his pipe, is carefully cleaned and emptied after each flame has gone out. A man doesn't ask a girl to "name the day" any more. He merely pleads guilty to loving her, and then closes his eyes while she passes sentence on him, and decide when he shall begin serving time. When a woman reforms, she bleaches her conscience down to the roots as she does her hair. A man simply gives his a coat of whitewashing, so that he will have a nice clean space in which to begin all over again. When a bachelor sniffs through his letters before opening them in the morning, it is not a sign that he is looking for dynamite, but that he is looking for a note bearing a brand of sachet which he has mistaken for some girl's sweet personality. At the awakening from love's young dream, the woman's first thought is, "How can I break his heart?" The man's, "How can I break away?" A man falls in love through his eyes, a woman through her imagination, and then they both speak of it as an affair of the heart. No, Clarice, a man's idea of being loved isn't exactly being followed around with a hot water bottle, a box of pills, and the eternal question, "Do you love me as much as ever?" One grass widow doesn't make a summer resort, but she can always make it interesting. When a man has baggy trousers nowadays, it is from falling on his knees to an automobile, not to a girl. A black lie always shows up against the dazzling background of truth. It's all the little white ones a man keeps telling you that can't be spotted or distinguished from the rest of his conversation. The only time when a sense of humour profits a woman anything is when she can laugh at herself for having tried to charm a man by dazzling him with it. Most men fall in love with a sudden jolt, and wake up to find that they are married to an impulse. It's a lame love that has to be carried through the honeymoon in a $3,000 touring car. In the mathematics of a bachelor, one kiss makes a flirtation, 2 kisses makes one conquest, 3 kisses make a love affair, and 4 kisses make one tired. There are chain smokers who light one cigarette from the dying end of another, and there are also chain lovers who light one flame from the dying embers of another. Eve had one advantage over all the rest of her sex. In his wildest moments of rage, Adam could never accuse her of being just like her mother. Every woman has a different notion of an ideal husband, but every woman's ideal lover is the same impossible combination of saint and devil, brute and baby, hero and mollycoddle, that is never seen anywhere off the stage or outside the pages of a best thriller. Love is a voyage of discovery, marriage the goal, and divorce the relief expedition. A man never can comprehend why a woman can't understand how he can be dead in love with one girl and acutely alive to the charms of a lot of others at the same time. Jealousy is the tie that binds, and binds, and binds. It is not the fear of being shipwrecked that keeps a bachelor from embarking.
Ellipsis, we are listening to a book from 1922 on relationship advice. we're resetting in between H.G. Wells books. We just finished War of the Worlds, and now we're gonna be moving on to the Time Machine next week. So this is just a little brief filler for tonight. But we're listening to A Guide to Men by Helen Rowland from 1922. Ooh, actually, oh my god. Um, and I am drawing some actresses from back in the day, just to practice some drawing. Right now, oh, excuse me, I'm working on Pauline Stark, was an actress from the 1920s. And then Reggie, no, I have not tried all the flavors yet. I think I got toasted marshmallow once. I think I got one of the other good ones. And then the last two times, it has been the puke flavored ones. Ah, I don't know if you were here, Ellipsis, but I appreciate when y'all have hype trains. And when there's a hype train and y'all complete a level 3, I spin the Beanboozled spinner. And sometimes I get a good one, and sometimes I don't. And then I have burps for the rest of stream. So yeah, earlier today, I mean, it's not forever. It's just like it'll wear off in like an hour, and I appreciate the the hype trains. So it's just to show my appreciation. I take that risk because I love y'all. All right, back to the book. Excuse me.
On the sea of matrimony, it is the awful horror of being becalmed. Nowadays, most women grow old gracefully, most men disgracefully. A man can forgive a woman for having made a fool of herself over any man on earth, except himself. Eternity. The interval between the time when a woman discovers that a man is in love with her and the time when he finds it out himself and tells her about it. The follies which a man regrets the most in his life are those which he didn't commit when he had the opportunity. In the average man's opinion, the command, "Thou shalt not steal," does not apply to a kiss, a heart, an umbrella, a hotel, or an after-dinner story. To a woman, the first kiss is just the end of the beginning. To a man, it is the beginning of the end. The qualities a man seeks in a bride no more resemble those he will want in a wife than a cabaret rag ditty resembles a lullaby, but 2 years ahead is farther than any man can see when he is looking into a pretty girl's eyes. End of section 8.
So that was apparently about widows. Now we're moving on to widowers.
Section 9 of A Guide to Men by Helen Rowland. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Widowers. You may groom, you may polish him up as you will, but the mark of the married man clings to him still. The tenderest, most impressionable thing on earth is the heart of a yearling widower. Of course it is easier to marry a widower than a bachelor. A man who has been through the Armageddon of one marriage has no spirit of battle left in him. When a widow begins curling her hair again, or a widower begins worrying about his thinness on top, Cupid chuckles and gets out his arrows, and Satan smiles behind his hand. In the matrimonial market, a seasoned bachelor is just a shop-worn remnant. A divorcee is a cast-off, second-hand article, but a widower is a treasured heirloom inherited only through death. After his wedding day, A man usually tucks all the flattering adjectives and tender nothings in his vocabulary away in a pigeonhole and marks them not to be opened until widowerhood. Perhaps there may not be so much excitement in marrying a widower, but there is a lot more comfort in getting something that another woman has broken into double harness than in lashing yourself to a bucking bronco fresh from the wild. No matter how unhappy a man may have been with his first wife, nothing on earth will make him flatter her successor by acknowledging that she was not a combination of Circe, St. Cecilia, and the Venus de Milo. The girl who marries a widower may be a sort of second edition, but the girl who marries a seasoned bachelor is apt to be a 42nd edition. When a widower vows he will never marry again, listen for the wedding bells. The never-agains are the easiest fruit in the garden of love. It's the never-at-alls who are harder than a newsboy's conscience, colder than yesterday's kiss, and less impressionable than a boarding-house steak. If a woman could foresee how irresistible her husband would look, with a bereaved expression on his face and a black band on his coat sleeve, it would give her the strength to live forever. Some widowers are bereaved, others relieved. A man may forget all about how to make love during 10 years of matrimony, but it's wonderful how quickly he can brush up on the fine points again after he becomes a widower. Fourth interlude. A man always looks at a woman through either the right or the wrong end of a telescope, and thus always sees her as a divinity or a devil, never as a human being. Business girl's motto: better marry and be a poor man's slave than stay single and be a rich man's stenographer. When a clever girl lets fly the arrows of wit, she should be careful to see that a man's vanity is not the bullseye.
Hello. Sorry. We just had a hype train that resulted in me eating a very nasty jelly bean, so my voice and everything is off. But hello, Jinx Digital Art. We're listening to a book from the 1920s called A Guide to Men by Helen Rowland. That's kind of what we do. We listen to audiobooks. Next up is going to be The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. And I am drawing some actresses from the 1920s. Oh, excuse me. Right now, I'm working on Pauline Stark. She's a 1920s actress. Oh, excuse me. And it's amazing Chad is learning things about men. Yeah, we're learning so many things. Wisdom of 100 years ago. Hey, Progress. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for a while. Let me give you a shout out on your way out. I don't know if you're still in here, Dig Out America. I would have given you a shout out for reading in as well. But there was a lot going on, and I'm 90% sure everyone in my chat was already following. But if you're not following Progress, give him a follow. I'm going to turn the book back on and continue with this art.
It is difficult for a man to reconcile a girl's absorbing interest in picture hats, pearl powder, and Paquin models with real brains, but somehow his own enthusiasm for baseball and golf never seems to him incompatible with superior intelligence. Don't fancy your husband has ceased to love you merely because he no longer seems to notice your presence around the house. Wait till he gets so that he doesn't even notice your absence. A good husband is one who will get up and lift the ice off the dumbwaiter, instead of lying back and lifting his voice to tell you how to do it without hurting your itsy-bitsy fingers. The shallower a man's love, the more it bubbles over into eloquence. When his emotions go deep, words stick in his throat and have to be hauled out of him with a derrick. To be happy with a man, you must understand him a lot and love him a little. To be happy with a woman, you must love her a lot and try not to understand her at all. A man with savoir-faire may scintillate in a crowd, but it takes a bashful man to shine in a dim, cosy corner. Every bride fancies that she married the original caveman until she tries to persuade him to go out and argue with the furniture movers. What a man calls his conscience in a love affair is merely a pain in his vanity, the moral ache that accompanies a headache, or the mental action that follows a sentimental reaction. It never pays to compromise. Cheap clothes, cheap literature, cheap sports, cheap flirtations. A life filled with these is nothing but an electric flash, advertising something just as good. Just at first, every man seems to fancy that it takes nothing but brute force and determination to run an automobile or a wife. After the smash-up, he changes his mind. Brains and beauty are an impossible combination in a woman. Not necessarily impossible to find, but impossible to live with. When a woman looks at a man in evening dress, she sometimes can't help wondering why he wants to blazon his ancestry to the world by wearing a coat with a long tail to it. When a man says he loves you, don't ask him why, because by the time he has found his reason, he will undoubtedly have lost his enthusiasm. Pshaw, it is no more reasonable to expect a man to love you tomorrow because he loves you today than it is to assume that the sun will be shining tomorrow because the weather is pleasant today. Sending a man a sentimental note just after he has spent the evening with you has about the same thrilling effect as offering him a sandwich immediately after dinner. A good woman, according to Mrs. Grundy, is one who would scorn to sacrifice society for the sake of a man, but will cheerfully sacrifice the man she marries for the sake of society. The flower of a man's love is not an immortelle, but a morning glory, which fades the moment the sun of a woman's smiles becomes too intense and glowing. The sweetest part of a love affair is just before the confession, when you begin discussing love in the abstract and gazing concretely into one another's eyes. Marriage is a photogravure made from the glowing illusions which love has painted on the canvas of the heart. A woman may have to reach heaven before she tastes supernal joy, but to taste supreme punishment, she has only to watch the love mist die out of a man's eyes. Nothing frightens a man like a woman's stony silence. Somehow, in spite of his lack of intuition, he has a subconscious premonition that her love is dead.
Not like a live mama bear, not like a viper, not like a tiger, not like a car coming at you. Nope, it's us ladies. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
When she is too weary and disinterested to answer back. The satisfaction in flattering a man consists in the fact that, whether you lay it on thick or thin, rough or smooth, a little of it is always bound to stick. Love is a furnace in which the man builds the fire, and forever afterward expects the woman to keep it glowing by supplying all the fuel. The gods must love summer flirtations, they die so young. A man may have heart enough to love more than one woman at a time, but unless he is a fatalist he should have brains enough not to try it. When love dies, a wise married couple give its ashes a respectful burial, and hang a good photograph of it on the wall for the benefit of the public. End of section 9.
That one was hilarious. All right, we've got 3 left. We've got maybe 15 minutes left on these. So we've got second marriages, then women and her infinite variety, and then finally maxims of Cleopatra. Also, yes, if you see me making faces, it's because I still taste that damn bean. I did mouthwash twice and I still can frickin' taste it. Ugh, excuse me. All right, so 3 left. We've got second marriages. That's that's like the next one after this. So we've got second marriages, then women and her infinite variety, and then finale, Maxims of Cleopatra. Um, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Artists are our own worst critics. I almost never completely love anything that I create. There's always ways to improve and get better. That's kind of why I wanted to do some sketch practice tonight. Sketching from public domain photographs because it's good to get better at observation and stuff. So the drawing will not get good till the Maxims of Cleopatra. Excuse me. The more I'm adding contrast in, I'm starting to like it a little more. It's not terrible. It's not great, but it's not completely terrible. I'll give it that. I'm liking it better than I did when I first said I was having trouble with it. All right. So, let's learn about second marriages now. Get your listening ears on for the wisdom that is about to drop.
Section 10 of A Guide to Men by Helen Rowland. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Second marriages. Hints on how to conduct encore performances of the ceremony. Every time a man falls in love, he fancies that he has just discovered a brand new sensation. But alas, it always turns out, like the hotel soup, to be just the same old stock with a different flavouring. A bride at her second wedding does not wear a veil. She wants to see what she is getting. Always send your former husband a notice of your marriage. True politeness consists in giving pleasure to others. If you meet your ex-husband's fiancée, treat her with sympathetic courtesy. Remember that she is more to be pitied than scorned. If the bridegroom does not show up, marry the best man. After a few weeks you will not be able to notice the difference between them. Either will make you the same old.
Did she just say? If the groom doesn't show up, just marry the best man. What if the best man's already married? Oh my gosh. Okay, sorry. All right. Okay. Are you listening? If he gets stood up, don't cry. Don't worry about it. Just marry the best man and you won't be able to tell the difference in a few weeks. Oh my god. Don't be sad. Apparently be glad with what you get, I guess. I don't know. Doesn't
Excuses, tell you the same stories, and give you the same stock kisses in the morning. When your second husband begins to speak wistfully of your first husband, do not chide him. Remember that misery loves company, and perhaps it is a comfort to him to think that someone else has been as foolish as he has. Never consider your wedding a settled thing until you have gotten the man to the altar. The primary rule for marrying is, first catch your husband. Besides, there's many a slip betwixt the licence and the certificate, and you may let him slip. In selecting husbands, always consider that it is quality.
She's just like, yeah, they're gonna cheat. Just let them do it. You're not married yet. What? I- oh my god. This is great relationship advice. Totally still applicable today. Put this into practice and let me know how it goes. Oh my gosh.
Not quantity that counts. 1 or 2 marriages, like 1 or 2 drinks, may not have any visible effect upon you, but don't make it a custom. A woman marries the first time, you know, for love, the second time for companionship, the third time for a support, and the rest of the time just from habit. When marrying a second time, refrain from asking your friends what they think about it. Remember that they all think you are a fool. Intermezzo. A man's kisses are first reverent, then rapturous, then tender, then casual, and at last charitable. The hardest thing in life is to discover the exact geographical location of a man's grouch, whether it is in his tooth, his vanity, or his digestion, or is just a chronic condition of the whole system. Being in love is like a fascinating spin at will in an automobile. Being married, like a trolley trip on rails, with somebody ringing the bell at you every few minutes. A woman's love is composed of maternal tenderness, childlike inconsistency, torturing jealousy, and sublime unselfishness. And how is a man ever going to comprehend a mixture like that? Alas, why is it that the most popular and fascinating women are so often the last to marry, and then nearly always pluck either a broken stick from the tide of life or a brand from the burning? Some women can be fooled all of the time, and all women can be fooled some of the time, but the same woman can't be fooled by the same man in the same way more than half of the time. A woman always wants her photograph to flatter her, but a man is perfectly satisfied if he gets one that looks as fascinating and impressive as he thinks he does. A jealous husband can put 2 and 2 together and make 14. When a man hesitates to propose to a girl, he is never quite sure whether it is the fear of being
A jealous husband can put 2 and 2 together and get 14. 9 plus 3 equals Wednesday. This is honestly, it's bringing back memories. I drew way back in the day. I'll try and find it over the weekend and share it on Monday. We did a cabaret. I ran a theater for a while. I was the administrative director of the theater, and I did a lot of stuff. And when I say theater, I mean performance theater, not movie theater. And we did a cabaret style show that was called Love Is. And I drew a logo for it, which was a man and a woman inside of a heart. And it had them holding the drama mask away from their face. So the man was holding the sad face, but was really happy underneath. And the woman was holding the happy face and was actually sad underneath. And we did all these different things, but I did I performed in a group number. I did Love Shack. But I did a monologue that was called Please Do Not Marry Me. And it's reminding me, like, I feel like whoever wrote that monologue read this book first. Like, if you want, after we finish the book, I'll pull it up and share it with you what that monologue was, but it's reminding me of that a lot. Most of the times, I would say sometimes there are people that are just insecure from past traumas, that it just affects them deeply and they get kind of obsessive compulsive over things. But anyway, I was holding the straight mask, but was really stoned underneath. It's been, first of all, that's not legal here. Second of all, it's been like I used to could, but my thyroid crapped out and I don't get down like that anymore very often. It's been a minute. Anyway, let's see what other words of wisdom, like 9 plus 3 equaling Wednesday, we can glean from this experience.
turned down, or the fear of being taken up, which paralyzes him. Spring is the time of year when the eternal monotony of the daily grind gives a man brain fag, and the eternal monotony of any one girl appears to give him heart fag. A wise woman puts a grain of sugar into everything she says to a man, and takes a grain of salt with everything he says to her. Of course a girl hates to wound a man, but sometimes, after a painful parting, it would seem so much more artistic if he would only remain wounded just a little longer. Making a man promise to drop a woman simply excites his sympathy for her, so that, before he has fairly cut the string, he is anxious to tie a knot in it again. The hardest task of a girl's life nowadays is to prove to a man that his intentions are serious. Love without faith, illusions, and trust is, Lord forgive us, cinders, ashes, and dust. A man who strays for love of a woman may sometimes be reclaimed, but the man who strays for love of amusement or love of novelty will never stay put for any girl. Most girls nowadays would give almost as much for a little genuine sentiment and a really convincing kiss as for a genuine old master and a really convincing novel. There are 100 things that the cleverest man in the world can never understand, and 99 of them are women. Many a man who is too tender-hearted to pour salt on an oyster will pour sarcasm all over his wife's vanity, and then wonder why she always shrivels up in her shell at the sight of him. A grub may become a butterfly, but the man who marries a butterfly, expecting her to turn into a grub, should remember that nature never works that way. A married man's hardest cross is not to be able to brag to his wife about the women who tried to flirt with him. Plato has lured more men into matrimony than Cupid. A man can see an arrow coming and dodge it, but platonic friendship strikes him in the back. Many a man has started out to string a girl, and gotten so tangled up that the string ended up in a marriage tie. Habit is the cement which holds the links of matrimony together when the ties of romance have crumbled. He that telleth a secret unto a married man may prepare himself for a lot of free advertising, for lo, the conjugal pillow is the root of all gossip. To make a man perfectly happy, tell him he works too hard, that he spends too much money, that he is misunderstood, or he is different. None of this is necessarily complimentary, but it will flatter him infinitely more than merely telling him that he is brilliant, or noble, or wise, or good. After a woman has lain awake half the night in order to be able to call her husband in time to catch his train, it's rather hard to be hated for it, just like an alarm clock. A man expects a woman to laugh at all his jokes, admire all his bon mots, agree with all his opinions, and be blind to all his faults, and then he scornfully wonders why women are so hypocritical. A diamond and a lump of coal are merely two varieties of carbon, but they are as different as the two things which the right wife and the wrong wife can make of the same man. Sometimes man proposes, and then keeps the girl waiting until the Lord kindly interposes. A woman flees from temptation, but a man just crawls away from it in the cheerful hope that it may overtake him. End of section 10.
Oh my gosh, tons. All right, last two chapters. We have Woman and Her Infinite Variety, which is only 5 minutes, and then the Maxims of Cleopatra, which is about 7 minutes. So we've got about 12 minutes remaining. Let's finish it up, and then we'll find someone to read. Women and Her Infinite Variety, or Woman and Her Infinite Variety.
Section 11 of A Guide to Men by Helen Rowland. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Woman and Her Infinite Variety. A leaf from Adam's Dictionary. Woman, a divine creation for the comfort and amusement of mankind. Rib, that part of a man's self of which he thinks the least and brags the most. Wife, the inferior fraction. The excuse for all a man's sins, the cause of all his failings, the keeper of his conscience, the guardian of his digestion, and the repository of his grouches. Better half, the half that is always left at home. Coquette, any woman who is so unreasonable as to not return a man's affections. Flirt, any woman over whom a man has insisted on making a fool of himself. Old maid, an unmarried woman with more wrinkles than money. Bachelor girl, an unmarried woman with more money than wrinkles. Kitten, any woman under 60 for whom a man feels a temporary tenderness. Queen, a pretty woman whom a man has not yet kissed. Ideal, the particular woman to whom a man happens to be making love. Clinging vine, a woman who allows her husband to think that he is having his own way. Helpmate, a combination of playmate, soulmate, and light-running domestic. Goddess, an impossible woman who exists only in novels and in a man's imagination. Paragon, the kind of woman a man ought to marry, wants to marry, intends to marry, and never does. Pessimism is a man's natural reaction after too much of anything: wine, love, food, flirtation, or optimism. Maxims of Cleopatra. 1. These 3 things man feareth: oysters out of season, a babe that plays with fire, and a woman who can reason. 2. Last year's sandals and yesterday's fish, last night's kisses and last week's wish, are, to a man, things gone and past, likewise the woman before the last. 3. The soul of a man is white, or black, or yellow, or dun, but a woman's soul is a rainbow and a Roman sash in one. 4. Empty the words of the prayer when the Pharisee prayeth aloud, empty the words of love when he praiseth thee in a crowd. Yet he that is cold in the crowd, but seeketh thine ear when alone, in the land of the great god Isis, by the name Cad shall be known. 5. As the pearl that I dropped in the glass can never again be mine, so many a pearl of woman's love hath a man dissolved in wine. 6. Geese walk not alone, sheep will follow sheep, so this little maxim I would have ye keep: would ye conquer all men, make a fool of one, the rest will turn toward thee as lilies to the sun. 7. The young man calleth for wine, the old for crystal water. Seek not to enslave a boy till thou art 30, daughter. 8. When the game is over, vain the loser's sigh. To thy parting lover, wave a gay good-bye. 'Neath the storm cloud bending, see the lily laugh. If love's reign be ending, write his epitaph. Deck his grave with iris, blot away his name. Isis and Osiris, make thy daughter game. 9. Flatter him boldly, daughter, be he old or wise or callow, for there is no meed of flattery that a man will fail to swallow, yet after a time desist, lest perchance in his vanity he wonder why such a demigod should stoop to a worm like thee. 10. Call the bald man boy, make the sage thy toy, greet the youth with solemn face, praise the fat man for his grace. End of section 11.
Um, those were certainly words. Those were certainly words. Um, So, they said Maxims of Cleopatra. There is one that says Maxims of Cleopatra as the last one. So I don't know if it's going to repeat any of that or what. I might forward it if it does, but here it is, the final chapter of this book.
Section 12 of A Guide to Men by Helen Rowland. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Finale. Where is the sweet old-fashioned wife who used to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and cook her husband's breakfast? Gone, gone, alas, with the sweet old-fashioned husband who used to come home at 6 o'clock in the evening and stay there. All the love routes lead to a kiss, but some men make love with the directness of an express train, some as haltingly as a local, and some with the charm, smoothness, and variation of a special. When a man complains of the girls who pursue him, don't forget that the mark of a real girl charmer is his dead silence concerning all women except the one to whom he happens to be talking. A man's idea of displaying resolution appears to be first to find out what a woman wants him to do, and then to proceed resolutely not to do it. Presence of mind in love-making is a sure sign of absence of heart. No man begins to be serious until he begins to be foolish. The girl a man marries is never the one he ought to marry, or intended to marry, but just some innocent bystander who happened to be in the way at the psychological moment. A woman's heart is like a frame which holds only one picture at a time. A man's is more like a cinematograph. A man's love is not actually dead until he begins subconsciously to think of his wife as the person who makes him wear his rubbers, mow the lawn, put up the fly screens, and explain where he has been all Saturday afternoon. The average man is so busy backing away from the girls he ought to marry that he usually backs right into the arms of the one woman under heaven that he ought not to marry. A man is like a motor car which always balks on the trolley tracks and runs at top speed downhill. A wife is the human brake that prevents him from going to destruction. When a girl refuses a man, his greatest emotion is not disappointment, but astonishment that she should be so blind to her own luck. Nothing bores a man so much as for a woman to give him all her love when he only wanted a little of it. Solomon was the only man who ever had 699 alibis when one of his wives detected the fragrance of another woman's sachet on his coat lapel. Every man rocks the boat of happiness at least once during a love affair, usually by trying to leap out of it before it lands in the port of matrimony. All a man needs in order to win any woman is a little audacity, a little mendacity, and plenty of pertinacity. The only chain that can bind love is an endless chain of compliments. When a woman doesn't marry, it is usually because she has never met the man with whom she could be perfectly happy. But when a man remains single, it is usually because he has never met the woman without whom he could not be perfectly happy. Most men expect a reform between the last dose of medicine and the last breath. Speaking of the modern advance in the arts and crafts, it requires more art to get a husband and more craft to keep one nowadays than it ever did. A frank man may be the noblest work of God, but he is as much of a nuisance in feminine society as a woman on a fishing trip. There is always a chance that a man may escape from the bonds of matrimony, but an old bachelor is wedded by all the bonds of nature to a collection of habits from which nothing but death can divorce him. By the time he marries, a bachelor's heart has been pressed, cleaned, and mended so often that it will barely hold together through the honeymoon. It seems so unreasonable of man to expect a woman to think straight, walk straight, or talk straight, considering that she was made from his rib, the crookedest bone in his body. Motto for a married
Then-
man's den. Others love your wife, why not you? A man's idea of being perfectly loyal to a woman is to think of her always, even when he is kissing another woman. Love is just a glittering illusion with which we gild the cold hard facts of life until all the world seems bright and shining. Most men are so busy dodging one love affair that they step right back under the wheels of another and are fatally mangled. A brave man is always ready to face the music, provided it isn't that old tune from Lohengrin. If married couples would show as much respect for one another's personal liberty, habits and preferences as they do for one another's toothbrushes, love's young dream would not so often turn into a nightmare. It is the Siamese twin existence they impose on themselves that drives them to distraction or destruction. A man kills time with a golf stick, a woman with a lipstick. It is foolish to fancy that a man is thinking of proposing to you. A man never proposes to any woman until he has gotten past thinking. If a man would employ a little more common sense before marriage, and a little more incense afterwards, marriage would be more of an inspiration and less of a visitation. Never trust a husband too far, nor a bachelor too near. The man who takes a kiss for granted doesn't stand a chance beside the man who takes it before it is granted. Husband, a miniature volcano, constantly smoking.
am I the only one that last line was really ick? That last line was really ick. You don't take kisses before they're granted. Unless I'm hearing that wrong, like that was no. Just she said something to the effect of like someone who takes kisses for granted does not stand a chance against someone who takes kisses before they are granted. That's 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 just ick. You don't take kisses if they are not being granted to you. That's all I'm saying.
Usually grumbling, and always liable to violent and unexpected eruptions. On the journey of matrimony, there are no garages where punctured illusions can be patched up, shattered ideals mended, and empty hearts refilled. Of course a man is not as jealous as a woman, because it's so hard for him to believe that a girl on whom he bestows himself could possibly wish for anything better. The making of a husband out of a mere man is not a sinecure, it's one of the highest plastic arts known to civilization. Before marriage, a woman says sweetly, "I understand you." After marriage, she says coldly, "I see through you." Oh, what is so stupid as last year's song, so foolish as last year's fashion, so completely forgotten as last year's girl, and so dead as a last year's passion? Curtain. End of A Guide to Men, being encore reflections of a bachelor girl by Helen Rowland. Recording by Corrie Samuel.
Yeah, no, that's why I paused and I was like, no, totally disagree. So these were the artworks we did tonight. This first one, not as great. It's okay-ish, I guess. That one's kind of the warm-up. I kind of like this one. I feel like I could keep fiddling with it way too much, but I kind of like how this one came out. More than the other one. Oh, excuse me. You're up to 8 now? I thought you already talked about 8. But yeah, this one's supposed to be Pauline Stark. It's not perfect, but I don't mind it. It came out better than the other one. Consent is sustainable and attractive. Um, so I got married entirely too young. Hey Shadow, you come kill a bug. Um, it's right here. It's just out of my reach. Thank you. We live right near the woods and it's warming up, so when we open our back door, like things are getting in. Anyway, no, it did not. um, but Shadow, who I was just talking to, we've been together now for like 10 years. And we honestly, the only reason that we even got married is because we have a kiddo, and South Carolina has some really messed up laws. Um, because my first husband and I, we separated and we were amicable about it for the most part. Um, but when like we had been apart for like 2 years, like it was done, we just hadn't filed the paperwork. And then Shadow and I um had an uh-oh. And was Shadow your husband's best man? No, but funny enough, the maid of honor, when she was like going there, I told her to find the best man, and she's like, "How am I gonna know who the best man is?" And I was like, "It's gonna look like Shadow, but not be Shadow." um, because he looks a lot like his brother, so that like fits that joke way better than you think. But anyway, so when we got married, or when we had our child, I was like, oh crap, I should file the paperwork for the ex. We should like end that because I'm about to have a child. In South Carolina, if you're legally married, doesn't matter how long you've been apart. If you are with child for any portion of that marriage, even if it's been over, you can only put the person you're married to on the birth certificate. Even though everybody agreed, nope, we've been apart for, 2, maybe even 3 years now. You cannot put, you cannot put anyone other than the person you're married to on the birth certificate. So you either put the person that you're married to or no one on the birth certificate. So I didn't have the money to like go to court. And it's I'll mention something about that because I actually am pretty good friends with, and I can sign at the same shop as the artist that was the official sketch artist for that trial. But so yeah, we I can't go to I couldn't put Shadow on his own son's birth certificate. So we eventually, after a few years, decided to go ahead and tie the knot. So we had a ceremony at a like a elevated ropes obstacle course thing, and we had s'mores and we wore our Rugged Maniac t-shirts and sneakers, and then later on we went to a bar and had some food, and it was much better than that first wedding, because we didn't like plan we planned a wedding, but we were planning for a marriage, not just like a wedding. Like we knew what we were getting into. We had already been together for 5 years. I'm not married to the evil twin because his brother is not evil. They just look a lot alike. Actually, technically, I'm kind of married to the more evil one, to be honest. He agreed from the other room. But yeah, we've been together for like, I don't know, 10 years now or so, and been married for like 4. But yeah, that first one did not work out. But yes, I do consign. Let me get out of this for a second. I do consign at the shop for the official sketch artist. So let me pull this back up now. So these are from the trial. They look a lot alike, but one has a goatee and is left-handed. How do you know that? No, they do not have a goatee, either of them, but Shadow is left-handed. She got kicked out of the jury box a couple of days ago. Who got kicked out of the jury box a couple of days ago? All of Star Trek COS. Sketch artist in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was minor. Um, I don't. There were actually, I have 2 friends that were like doing the sketch artist, so I don't know if one of them got like had to leave or whatever. I don't know what happened. But because I'm not really watching it or paying attention to it, to be honest, I just don't have time. I gotta do that momming stuff. But yeah, these are actually from the trial. One of the sketch artists that was in there is a friend of mine. I consign artwork at her shop actually. Um, it's an artist co-op. But these are from her being in there. She's been interviewed, and you like catch her a few times. I Another friend was in there for a little bit too. So she's gonna be auctioning some of these off on eBay, actually. So yeah. I'm not following that trial, but you never had a sketch artist at any of your trials? Oh man. Um, but yeah, so I the only reason I've been loosely paying attention to it is to like be like, oh, that's cool. Like my friend from the shop I can sign at is actually one of the sketch artists who's approved for that. Um, but real quick, I because of the content of the book tonight, it really reminded me of this monologue that I performed for this loved cabaret that we did when I ran the theater. So I'm gonna read this quick monologue to you, and then we're gonna find someone to raid and call it a night because I've been on way like an hour longer than I'm usually on Fridays, but it's been fun. Even the yucky part, I appreciate the support. I'm willing to suffer a little bit as a thank you for the support. Um, but anyway, let me pull this up. Okay, so this is a monologue called It's Terrible Being Nice. It's from a play called Goodbye Charles. I've never seen the play, but the monologue um, is a woman talking to a guy who's on his knee with a little box in his hand. So it's don't do it. Don't open that little box one more crack. Don't ask me to marry you. Shh. Don't say another word. Just listen. I can't let you do this to me. I mean, before I met you, I used to be such a bitch. I mean, seriously, everyone at work thought I was a huge bitch. No one actually liked me. Those people I introduced you to as my friends, they're not my friends. They're scared of me, or at least they were before I met you. Before I met you, I never said please or thank you at restaurants. I never smiled or laughed at anyone's jokes but mine. I never used to tip more than 10%. I was quick with insults. I always had a cruel word. I was cold, cross, crass, falsely compassionate. But since being with you, I've begun to feel all warm inside, fuzzy. I find myself wanting to stroll in the park and whistle. I have these thoughts, these urges to donate to charities and help out in soup kitchens and hug people. And since being with you, I've given nearly $10 to homeless men. I've helped 3 old ladies cross the street and I bought one of my so-called friends a present at full price. And it was something I knew she'd like. Don't you see? Don't you see that you've made me nice? And what really scares me is that you'll open that box and ask me to marry you, and I'll just nicely say yes, and then I'll be nice for life. I'll be singing Kumbaya for the rest of my days. I'll give back to the community, to the Salvation Army, to the Make a Wish Foundation, and I'll do it anonymously. And then one day, years from now, I'll wake up and I'll have the horrible realization that I lived a good life, that I contributed. Please, for the love of God, put that box away. I mean, the planet already has millions of nice people. It doesn't need me to. I'm a bitch, and I want to stay that way. Please, don't. I'm asking you. No, I'm begging you. I'm getting down on my knees. Will you please, please not marry me? So that was that the whole book that we were listening to tonight reminded me of that monologue that I did back in the day for a love fundraising cabaret that we did at the theater. Clipped what? Clipped what? Anyway, thank you. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Um anyway, all right. Thank you for hanging out. Um I'm about to raid out tons, so the stream is going to end. So you can go back and see the bean boozling if you want, and you can clip it then. Um, but please hang out for just a few minutes. I don't know about that. Sure, I suppose. Maybe, mayhap, probably not. But anyway, um, let me see who's online so we can find somebody to raid. Please stick around for just another minute and forward on the love with the raid. It really does help me as well when you don't drop out. Do you want to be one of the other definitions? I want to be HR. That's who I want to be. Let me see who's on the raid. Please stick around for just a minute. It does help my channel when you stick around. Let's see who's on. If anyone's got any. So you want to be feared. I want to get emails answered. People do answer emails faster. I want to change the game for HR. People in HR get a bad rap. I'm just trying to help them out a little bit. I'm looking for someone to raid. Not a lot of people on it this time. So I'm gonna send you guys over to Commander Biscuit. Cool streamer. Plays good music. That's the raid message that you can copy it if you want. This is a fellow artist that streams is in Canada, plays guitar, just cool stuff. Looks like he's sketching a dino and celebrating getting 1,000 followers right now. So we're gonna read over there. And thank you so much for hanging out with me. Thank you so much for all the bits and the follows and the subs and all of that jazz. Much appreciated. So very much appreciated. I will be back on Monday, or I'll see you elsewhere around the internet lands. See you soon. Go give Biscuit some love. 3, 2, 1. Bye.